Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Heliopsychosis podcast. This is your host Vikka Draziv. Welcome, guys. If you're watching us from YouTube, do comment, like, share, and subscribe if you haven't. And if you're watching us from Heliopsychosis group on Facebook or Fern Flat Earth Research Network, do comment and share the show in other groups. And if you're watching us from RTS, realtruthseekers.com or .net, thank you guys for watching because there's a huge community there and realtruthseekers.com .net. And boy, what a show we have got today. Wow. Gonna be an amazing show. We've been looking almost the whole week looking forward for this show. And our guest, my first host, we all know him from Flat in the Curve, helicopter pilot, engineer, almost a scientist, my good friend, Rob Taylor. Rob, how are you, Rob?
Yes, thank you for the introduction, Vika. Thanks for the invite, and thanks for the continuous podcast. And I want to make mention to everybody, if there ever was a flat Earth guru, it's Vikka Draziv. Thank you, Vika, for putting together the Flat Earth or the Flatten the Curve documentary, for organizing everybody. I want to let everybody know that was all Vika's effort and the directing, movie producing. Vika, thank you so much for that fabulous effort. One of a kind. And I want to say thank you to everybody else that came on today. Gene, thanks for coming. And Gregory Garrett, if we have a guru of informing with Gregory Garrett. Thanks for your wealth of knowledge and all your books and your prolific book writing, Gregory. Thank you very much. And Mark Hollander is another book writer with us today. Thank you. And it's nice to talk with you guys today. Thanks, Vika. Back to you.
We all thank you, Rob. We all are, and as I always say, Flatten the Curve was only possible because we all did our part. So it's complete because we did it together, and that's the best part of it. It's amazing. Welcome, Rob, and we got our other co-host. We also know him, Jeannie. Jeannie, how are you, Jeannie?
Vika, I'm doing great. I've been looking forward to this all week. Like you said, this is going to be a great show, everybody. Thanks to the panel for being here. Vika, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here. And I would like to say something to the audience who is always here for us. We love you all. Thank you for being here. And if I might suggest to everybody, it might be a great idea to grab a pen and paper right now, because you might want to jot some notes down while this is going on, while things are fresh in your mind, because if you go back later, you might not be thinking the same thing, and it could be very original. And just a suggestion, and that's something I do all the time. And that's all. Just thanks for being here. And Vika, thanks again for having me, brother, and putting this together.
Welcome, Jeannie. Yes, sir. The show is gonna be awesome. And then we have got another star from Flatten the Curve, the author of The Flat Truth, also my really good friend, Mark.
Thank you, Vika. Guys, it's really, really a great honor. Anytime that I can get on the panel with such superstars of truth, it's an honor to have Gregory Garrett with us, and it's just a crazy world. Greg's written more books, and I think most of us anyway, and we got such great material nowadays because living in the world of propaganda, the truth is always a conspiracy anyway. So but Vika, Flatten the Curve, it's got so much traction here in South Louisiana. It's unbelievable. As I tell people that you're the Steven Spielberg of conspiracy. You are amazing.
Well said.
Just every day I count my blessings that I was lucky and fortunate enough to be able to be part of that documentary. And of course, Gene. Hello, Gene. And Gene's such a wonderful, this positive energy people that are closer to me, sometimes more so than family in some cases. Rob Taylor, Rob Flat, Playing Earth, amazing, buddy. Sorry I didn't call you back last night, but we'll chat sometime tonight, brother. And I'm looking forward to it.
Anytime, Mark.
And of course, Greg Garrett, thank you for joining us, brother. We just very honored to have you. One of my truth authors, and I'm fixing to get on the RTS platform. They waiting for my PDF, so I'm going to be in a great honor room with people like Gregory Garrett and Eddie Allen with the 16 emergency landings. But it's just an honor to be here. Thank you, Vikka.
Oh, you're welcome, Mark. It's always a pleasure to have you too. We're supposed to have Billy Zig also from Flatten the Curve, from the Elusive Curve, the author, and we're also supposed to have Eddie Allen Carr. But this time changes. These people are making this 1 hour is really confusing the people, me myself too. And yes, our special guest for tonight is as you all heard, Gregory Lessing Garrett. And what would I say? He's into physics. He's into academic. He was into education. He's an author of more than 26 books, all we could imagine. We are really thrilled to have him here as a guest today, and so much to hear from him. Gregory, it's such a pleasure, brother, to have you here. Welcome. Whoop.
Can everybody hear me?
Nope.
There he goes.
We didn't hear you nothing.
Okay, hold on. Let me fix this.
Easy.
How about now?
I got you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. It's a little bit lower in volume, but yes, you're on.
All right, let me adjust something. Tell me if it's louder as I talk. I've got a right here.
Yeah, it's a little bit louder.
Huh. Hello.
Yeah, we got you.
I hear you good.
Is it super soft?
Very nice.
No, you're okay now.
Okay, all right. That's good. Yeah. So this is a treat for me. I've done about 12 radio shows. I'm getting a little feedback. Are you guys hearing feedback?
Yeah, you have an echo. No, we hear you twice. That's it. Maybe
Okay.
you have to
turn it down a bit. How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. No
Better.
feedback?
That sounds good.
All right, good.
No.
Okay, I'm not hearing any feedback too. So always things to adjust. So I often do radio shows. I've done about 12 in the past 2 years, and I'm just talking as the guest. So this is really, really special for me to have a bunch of people together of the same like mind, to go through these topics. As everyone knows, I've written quite a few books. I'm actually on my 36th book at this point. I have 6 books in the canon ready to shoot out. And what I do is I've been researching for over 40 years, and then I gathered huge amounts of information, and then I distill it, and then I write on it, and then I try to get the best writers that I know on the topic that I'm writing to help support the things I'm saying. And then I will quickly release those in a book format. And people often say, how are you doing this? Well, when you have 30, 40 years of research collected and writings, it's not that hard. I'm not saying anyone can do it, but it's not as difficult as people think. You're assembling information, you're building ideas, you're supporting them with evidence. And once you get rolling in this topic, as anyone knows who looks into this topic, it's absolutely infinite. And I start, I'm right. It's like, what? There's no end to this. And so for me, my first book was called The Scientism Delusion. And I was writing about scientism, not flat earth, scientism in modern academics, theoretical physics versus empirical physics, that kind of thing. And I started discovering a lot of things were theoretical, which we are taught are factual. For instance, black holes, dark matter, dark energy, Planck stars, gravity, time dilation, quantum superposition, quantum entanglement,
Big Bang.
The Big Bang, billions of light years, the huge distance, the supernovas, general relativity, special relativity, the cosmological constant. We're always talking about the the standard model, right? And it just goes on and on. Asteroids, comets, and the magnitudes, the trajectories of things, the
distances.
Distances. Yeah, you said it before I did. And so once I went down that hole, that scientism hole. My first book was called The Scientism Delusion, and it was kind of a breakthrough. It came out before another film came out. I forgot his name. You know who I'm talking about? That Scientism Exposed film.
Not familiar.
It's a very famous film. He's another big person on this topic. So at any rate, that led me to the idea of flat Earth. Okay, and then it was very quickly that all of a sudden everything fell together: scientism, flat Earth, theoretical physics, the cartels behind things, Freemasonry. It all starts to fall into place. And then I started producing books on the mystical Egyptian Hermetic numerology, astrology, alchemical Kabbalah, astrophysics, astronomy. How it's all the same thing: Kabbalah, Hermeticism.
There you go.
And astrophysics and astronomy is a religion. It's heliocentrism. Helios is the sun, and these are religions that are nothing but repackaging of ancient mystical Egyptian Hermetic mysticism.
Pseudoscientific religions, yes. And it's Robbie Davidson was the guy you're looking for.
Robbie Davidson, right. Yeah. After I did my book on Scientism Delusion, and then he shortly thereafter came up with his movie. So then everybody was like talking about scientism. And then I've written about 8 more books just on scientism, and they all converge on enclosed cosmology more and more, until I wrote a book called Biblical Cosmology, which was a lot of just empirical science, biblical foundation, the biblical foundation and justification for the enclosed cosmological model.
Right. So, Greg, as far as I understand, in your books, most that it's not your just opinion. You have scientific backing of most of your books, and that you have a scientific background to analyze these kind of things.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of opinion or belief. My background is pretty wide and varied. I've taken philosophy and physics at UCLA, psychology, astrophysics with Frank Drake at UCSC. So I have a lot of just basic Western empirical scientific background, in addition to a lot of theological and philosophic background. So you put it all together, and I'm really just trying to find out empirical observational evidence and see how it correlates with things like the Bible, for instance. That's a kind of an interesting exercise to do. But the first thing you see is some of the things that are glaringly, obviously deceptive or false are things like the rockets traveling in a vacuum. And I wrote a paper, a 28-page paper about how you can't have rockets, and it's based on Newton's the 3 laws of motion. It's based on how rockets work in vacuums. It's based on gas pressure, Gaussian equations. The whole thing is based on just regular physics. You don't have to get mystical or have belief structures. You just show. Yeah, it's not necessary. I've always been a fan of using physics to show that the physics of the heliocentric model doesn't work. There's no reason to go into stretching into belief structures or to do anything like that. Use the tools that they use to show them that their model fails.
It debunks itself
in their own language. Yeah. In other words, in their own language that they can understand what is the problem.
Hey, Gregory, in our circles here, especially with truthers, belief actually is the enemy of knowledge. So belief is not part of our game anymore. It's their game.
You'd be surprised how many people I have friends that are physicists, and they will argue with me tooth and nail. Like they'll get viciously, savagely angry if I even suggest that a rocket requires something to push off of. They go like,
Right.
what? I mean,
That's simple rocket physics. I learned that in basic flight school. The air of the rocket has to push off something, and literally it's in-ground effect. It's an out-of-ground effect versus in-ground effect. It's no different than helicopters flying in the air. There is a pushing motion. Exactly.
Hey, Gregory, as far as striking a nerve with that physicist, essentially the most deadly disease is a mind disease called indoctrination, and it's harder to get out of that part of your brain. That it just goes against the ego and their pride of knowing, and you know they think they all know him, but only our creators all know.
Oh, it's a religion. These are priests. They're not just
physicists. That's right. They are lying to you, Gregory. We know that. And they know that they are lying to you. That's why they get so upset, because they're lying. Well, deliberately.
And adding to the vacuum thing, for example, Gregory. So the same way, there's nothing can push in the vacuum. So even in the vacuum, there's no way a radio signal can travel to the Voyagers and all these planets. It's impossible. There are no fields for these radio transmissions to reach there.
Good point.
Right.
You know,
so there's no ether field. Exactly.
Right. Excellent. Yep. You know, the thing about molecular chain, okay, I'm not going to say that molecules are it's called atomism. It comes from Greece, atomism, atomic structures. We don't really know that that's the way things work. It could be just
exactly. Thank you.
More likely, it's perturbation, wave perturbation in the etheric field. You have
the ethereal field, yes.
Yeah, and there's wave perturbation, like sound waves. It travels in waves, not little particles. So it could be the same with anything. Okay, so I'm just throwing that out because if you have a rocket exhaust, which has a very real effect on the atmospheric pressure above the Earth. Okay, if you push against atmospheric pressure, it will push back as a manner of speaking, and the rocket will travel in an equal and opposite direction, exactly as Sir Isaac Newton said.
Newton's third law.
And those laws are very sound, but here's the rub. It only works or applies in an atmospheric pressurized field. Once you have a vacuum, now what are you pushing against?
Exactly. Nothing.
Now, here's how they got around this. The NASA fanboys and the physicists, here's what they said. Well, there's liquid oxygen injected into the back of the rocket, and what's happening is that the rocket thrust is pushing against this tiny little pad of liquid oxygen.
Oh my gosh!
Okay,
it's so ridiculous.
No, I have physics friends that tell me this is the works, and you know what I tell them? Well, what is the pad of oxygen pushing against? Because you have a continuum of, I'm going to use molecules just as a metaphor, but you have a continuum of a chain of molecular, like billiard balls hitting each other onto infinity. That's called the ground, or the floor. If there's nothing there to push against, I don't care what kind of liquid oxygen you have in the back of your rocket.
I mean, but it's a system environment as well. As far as the Earth, it's almost like a Tesla coil. I mean, Tesla said it himself. I mean, the so-called planets or whatever is suspended by celestial. It's actually a celestial sphere with electromagnetic levitation.
No, sonoluminescence. You get sonoluminescent effects. The stars. As far as I can see, and I wrote a book, I have like 200 pages just on sonoluminescence. And if you look into it, it's not some fringy flat earth theory. It comes from Harvard and MIT and Yale. They've done experiments on interjecting tiny bits of argon and helium and hydrogen gas, just a tiny drop, into a jar of water, and they added vibration, and it imploded and burned up to 20,000 Kelvin. That's your star. It's sonoluminescent vibratory structures. It's not a huge, terraformed planet of some sort at all.
Yeah, it lights in the sky, as the Bible says. They're just stuck in the sky. There they are, luminaries. Yeah. Yes, and the
Arena has the word bioluminescence, fluorescence. There are many different ways of illuminating. You have chemical ways, you have different way of illuminating, and the light creates. So luminescence is one of the more, the
bioluminescence.
Yep. and also the radiation was have been happening between the sun and the moon, that it auto illuminates the moon, also has some effect of a fluoroimmunism. I don't know the correct way to pronounce it, but it goes like that.
There's a bioluminescence, like a jellyfish bioluminescence, and then you have like sonoluminescence, which means luminescence via sound. Sono meaning sonar, sound. So it's just a matter of using vibratory structures to elicit a luminescent effect, and this is what sonoluminescence is, and that's what the stars appear to be. And you get these Nikon P900 and Nikon P1000 or 1000 images of stars, and it's exactly like little bits of pool water. It's like luminescent bits of water. So there you go.
Rocket traveling, it seems to be like jumping in midair.
Well, you know, another person said to me, well, it's kind of like what is that missile that's a kinetic missile that works on magnetism? It's like it's not
railgun.
Yeah, railgun. Okay, and someone was saying, they said, well, if you're on a skateboard and you just jerk forward, you can actually move. You know, this is supposed to be proof that you don't need anything to push against, because if you jerk forward, you're not pushing against anything beneath you, but
you're still touching the ground.
Exactly. These physicists like, wait a minute, you're on a skateboard, and what's the skateboard on? It's on the ground. You're still pushing. Even if you jerk, you're doing a kind of like maybe 45-degree angle of a jerk against the ground, which will push you forward. and so the point being, it all comes back to the rockets. You have to have atmospheric pressure, trillions of tons of pressure to push against, to have any opposite and equal reactive force, thrust forward.
Well, here's something though. You think of the ISS out there doing 17,000 miles an hour, almost 5 miles a second in a circle. How's it steering?
Here. Well, you know what they say? Have you ever watched all the sci-fi movies from Hollywood? They got little tiny spurts. It goes spit, spit, spit.
Yeah, right.
Like,
yeah.
And that's, okay, what is that pushing against?
Well, first of all, how's it pushing, and then how's it turning? It's all like a double O negative.
It's like who's the William Shatner? They cornered him once, and he said he essentially said that all of science is science fiction.
That's right.
Or the other, all the movies that appear to be scientific, and Star Wars.
That's what his direct quote was: "Science or science fiction, there's no difference."
There's no difference, right?
That's it. Yeah, that includes satellites and space and everything else.
And of course, what he meant was scientism. I don't know what he meant, but what we mean in extrapolating or deriving a meaning from what he said, what we're meaning is that scientism and science fiction are identical.
Right.
But empirical science is not science fiction. How a lamp works, how this audio works, this is science, not science.
Obviously this is working.
Right. Real science, which is the topic of this broadcast we're doing right now. Real science that we can observable, repeatable, or testable and repeatable. There we go. Right.
Scalable.
Exactly. There's a very fine line. There's a very fine line between science and pseudoscience, and that's what they exactly do. Once you get into assuming things, you are in other terrain, so this is what they do, so a real science is basic science. You're living, you're working with the environment. It's also science, it's you have science, logical science, but this pseudoscience is just invention, is maths. It's just confusing the people that nobody looks into.
Hey, Vikka, further your point, actually you can talk to an adult like they have a kindergarten student. If water doesn't bend and 70% of the Earth's surface is water, this fact by definition makes the Earth flat. Remember, never once has curvature been measured over large bodies of standing water. To form a ball, 30% of the Earth would have to be really curvy, would it not be, Rob?
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
And indeed, Gregory, it's not difficult to disprove all of this. All we have to do is put it to the numbers. Analyze all their heliocentrism, their garbage, and it just one test, one numerical test and it disproves all of it. And that's the whole point of Flatten the Curve. The documentary we did, none of our instruments can work on a curve, let alone on a spinning surface. It's simply the instruments simply don't work. Analyze it, right? Just one test, one numerical test. And another thing, all these examples they're trying to give you about rocket ships pushing in the vacuum. You know what that is? That's almost identical with the Lorentz Fitzgerald equation that they used to disprove Michelson-Morley. They're just trying to it's really a filibuster. It's a scientific filibuster trying to confuse everybody to show that they have something that disproves what reality, what we can observe. It's complete garbage, in other words.
Absolutely. There's no end to the twisting of basic scientific truths and interjecting endless obtuse equations that have no relation to the actual physical world in any way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
E equals MC squared, guys.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's magic.
I love that one because theoretically you can't break the speed of light, which is c, but we're going to square it in the equation.
Okay, exactly.
And
right.
and times it by any number you want.
It's like, okay, you can't break it, but in this equation, we're multiplying it times itself. That's how much faster we're going to go.
Right, exactly, right. It's medieval magic. That's all it is. It's medieval magic, alchemy, and you said it right, Gregory. All that atoms and the periodic table, that's nothing but modern alchemy. That's all it is.
It's a magnificent mathematical god, like Tesla says. It dazzles and makes people blind to the underlying errors. Like Gregory said, you can square it and try to get the equation they're looking for.
Yeah.
Complete bunk.
You can see how a lot of this is definitely rooted. It's not Egyptian Hermeticism, but a lot of it is rooted in just the alchemical practices of numerology. Because what they're doing is they're casting spells using equations. Think about it.
Yes. Well said.
They are.
The speed of light. We know that when we turn on a light, it's immediate. The speed of light is immediate. If we electrify a grid, it's immediately electrified to the extent of its magnitude, right? Yeah, so they just put a number on it. They put their Luciferian numerology on it and called it science. There it is. There you go, Greg. I agree with that completely.
It's like to draw it back to the what we were talking about, these vacuum. The thing they're not talking about is a pressure. You guys have heard of pressurized gradients. Pressure gradients, and so
the atmosphere.
In the atmosphere, and as you're ascending, because the trick is we're getting back to the pressurized system. You needing a container because they're saying that things become so rarefied and there's so many sparse little atoms that somehow the vacuum can't no longer get those atoms because they're not dense enough. I mean, it's just nonsense. Well, so it has to do with pressurized gradients. And here's the thing I discovered in I wrote a book called Heliosynchrony.
Yes, I saw that.
And it's about pressurized gradients require a closed thermodynamic system. Let me put it this way. So a closed system is required for pressure gradients to exist. And in an open system, pressure escapes, right? And thus pressure cannot
fills the void.
It fills the void. Nature abhors a vacuum. Right. So pressure cannot accumulate to distribute into gradients. The fact that the Earth's atmosphere exhibits gaseous pressure gradients is evidence of the Earth being a closed system.
Of a closed system. Bill Nye says it, right?
Exactly. So with a barrier between the highest atmospheric layer and anything else that might be beyond that.
Anything else on the outside. And there we go. Called the firmament. The Bible describes it. There we go.
And there it is. And so anything else on the other side of this barrier, which is commonly called the firmament, right? And the quote unquote Van Allen radiation belt by NASA.
Right. Which is an electromagnetic barrier.
Electromagnetic. And so we're getting and that's like the Tesla, the electromagnetic Earth. And it's like, what is gravity? Well, it's dielectric forces, it's buoyancy, it's electromagnetic forces, it's all these things working in a very, very tight network of forces. But at no time do you need gravity. So to sum up, in entering this near perfect vacuum of outer space, you reach a point where there's too little ambient pressure and it destroys the accelerant pressure of what's called the the nozzle of the it's called the Laval nozzle by NASA, LAVAL, Laval or Laval nozzle. And so less and less ambient pressure eventually leads to thermodynamic disequilibrium. You follow what I'm saying, guys? So it's like less and less ambient pressure, it leads to thermodynamic disequilibrium. And the thrusters have no mass to push off or act upon, as Newton says. And hence, without the external opposing force, as Newton's first law mentions, the rockets begin, quote, spinning their wheels, unquote, going nowhere. So that's my take on that.
Voila.
And the thermosphere these people speak about, there is no even proof about being that heat up there, so we were discussing this earlier too. It's much more cold up there.
Every pilot knows about adiabatic cooling. It's recorded as 2 degrees per 1,000 feet. The temperature decreases 2 degrees per 1,000 feet. Airliners have to have heating elements in there, or else everybody inside would freeze. So where is this thermosphere? Where does it exist? It doesn't exist in any scientific record, right? It's imaginary. It's Luciferian numerology.
Well, how they get around this, Rob, is they really push this idea of kinetic reactive forces. That's a big deal in NASA and physicists because what they're trying to say is that you don't need thrusters. You just need a kind of kinetic effect, and then there's a reaction.
Oh my gosh! Movement without propulsion. Excuse me. That violates the entire transportation world.
But you see, that's what they're pushing. It's like there's a thing called Guns in Outer Space, because this is what they'll say. They'll say, if you have a gun in a vacuum and you fire it, will it fire, right?
It will.
Well, here's the thing. It's a very interesting thing to look at. The Earth's atmosphere is replete with oxygen. So oxygen will burn fuel and things will, gun will go off. Guns are vacuum chamber, or guns tested in vacuum chambers with conditions to 1/trillionth of atmospheric pressure. Guns did not fire. And you know why? Because the bullet accelerant inside the little enclosed capsule, right? As soon as it hit this vacuum, there was no ability to continue to burn.
It's all about pressure.
There is no combustion. There's no combustion too.
And it escapes to the side, and it doesn't propel the bullet forward, which is the same reason that jet engines couldn't work, for the same reason.
But you see, you're extremely bright, but your first instinct was to say, well, sure, it'll fire. This is how they're getting around.
It will fire. The accelerant will fire, but the pressure goes away. There you go. So I was halfway correct.
Push off of at that point. There's nothing to push off.
Right. It's like you take your fingers and you wet the tips, and then you go to a candle. It goes, psst, right? It goes, psst. That's how fast you lose it. The conclusion is, and ever shall be, by the way, the absence of oxygen and molecular density in the surrounding space of an object will prevent any propellant from attaining combustion, regardless of infused metal oxide, oxygen, or accelerants in the chamber. You see how that works? You never can have,
Hey, Gregory, plus it breaks the law of the second law of thermodynamics.
Right, exactly.
It just annihilates it.
And they break every law. They break Newton's laws of motion. They break the thermodynamic forces. They did all the Gaussian equations, Maxwell's equations on electricity and magnetics. It's all destroyed when they pull off these paradoxes of a vacuum and propellants and accelerants. They destroy their whole, but they won't tell you that. They'll say, well, think it through. You could have a kinetic action, and there'd be well, how are you going to get this initial kinetic action? Like you're in a vacuum. You'd have to manually go out there and push the rocket with your arm or something.
Yeah, exactly. What do you got to stand on then?
There's nothing to push forward.
Well, you're standing on a vacuum that's 11 to the 18th torr more powerful than the strongest vacuum ever made by now. Yeah. I mean, no, remember, that's all a theory. Everything we're talking about is their model.
All theory.
The reason we're doing, we're not talking about the enclosed cosmological model. We're talking about their model, and by their laws, it debunks itself. This is what we're doing here.
using their established laws of science completely debunks heliocentrism.
That's why I love physics. That's why I love physics, because when I studied physics, I realized, oh, I can just basically use your own, your own arguments to show that you're contradicting yourself.
Well, when Jack Van Allen, back University of Iowa, discovered the Van Allen belts, the firmament is the Van Allen belts. That's what we need to understand. That's
correct.
That is the F word in the Bible that the Roman Catholics at the Vatican decided to take out the Bible along with 2,900 other words. So, but the Van Allen belts is actually, that is the firmament. And by the way, up until 1958, Britannica, world-class encyclopedias actually said in Antarctica that the firmament was only 13,800 feet. And if you wondered why they annexed, Antarctica, they guard the firmament. I mean, they declared war on the firmament with the Operation Fishbowl, Operation Dominant,
Operation High Jump.
Yeah. They can't get through
all that.
They
we wanted.
Operation.
Yeah, we wanted to jump in that. Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
Oh, just
no, go ahead. We wanted to know about Operation Dominic and the UFOs and all this.
Yeah, it just means the Lord, Dominic, Operation the Lord.
Yes,
it's just hiding
the fishbowl of the Lord.
Fishbowl hiding in plain sight.
We know who their Lord is. And by the way, in English, the word is firmament, and I will just share with everybody, as it goes for Bible accuracy. If anything starting with English is the least accurate, okay? Because they manipulated that English. The real word is, go back to the Hebrew. We have Strong's Concordance. We have the Blue Letter Bible. Go back to the original Hebrew, and the word is not rakia. Yes, rakia means a dome-shaped, a solid, impenetrable dome-shaped covering. That's the intent in the original Hebrew writing of the Bible. Firmament, the window in your wall, is a firmament. Your wall around your house, that's a firmament, but it doesn't have a shape. You see what I mean? But the original Hebrew gives it a dome shape, and that's why we have to go back to the original dome-shaped firmament, not just a firmament, but a dome-shaped firmament, and that's what we know exists.
Oh, interesting.
And what I would like to add to that is that the dome is, with my research, is supposed to be a translucent, solid object, one of the hardest material on Earth. Like diamond.
Oh yeah. That's, I think, my very first book on flat Earth, called the Flat Earth Trilogy, Book of Secrets 1. I was just kind of being tongue in cheek with all that title.
That's awesome. Like Harry Potter, Book of Secrets.
Yeah, because it's not really a secret, but it's a secret.
Right.
And I'm on my fourth book, called the Flat Earth Trilogy, Book of Secrets 4. Of course, that's a joke, because a trilogy has 3, and I'm just having a little fun with it. But the thing I was writing about, I was calling the firmament this is the thing I came up with, a quasi-vitreous metallic dome. What I meant by that, it's not necessarily
nice.
Because it makes sense to me. Quasi just means like partially. Quasi vitreous, like water-like. Okay, because it does have water and liquid properties.
Did you say liquid metal? Are you talking about liquid metal, Gregory?
No, not
like in Terminator. That's what it is.
Well, liquid metal, but quasi-metallic, vitreous, and more kind of like a quartzy metalish. Not strictly. Not mercury.
I mean, in layman's terms, Gregory, it would be called sky ice.
Sky ice, that's good.
In Antarctica at one of the bases,
because you're looking at something that's not so much a hard cast empirical solid form. It's more of it's like the infinite plane idea. It's more of a realm of vitreous, quasi-vitreous, but also it has properties that are metallic, and it also has properties that are almost semi-permeable, and at the same time it's a shell. It's so many paradoxical things together, in which case you can't get through it, but stars could theoretically exist inside of it. We don't fully know. And so I think we're dealing with something that's more realm-like, that, as opposed to like something you can nail down, like quartz or copper.
Right.
It has properties or attributes in a philosophic sense that are quasi-vitreous and metallic and hard-like and firmament-like and rakia and shell-like. But it also has this very liquid otherly dimensional aspect to it.
Greg could be also layers, different layers, and each have an individual layer. One could be gaseous, one could be liquid, one could be more, as you say, could be metal or a mix
Yeah.
of, So because in there are, according to some research, that every luminaries are supposed to be in their own layer. That's why we see the sun the closest, because it's supposed to be the closest to the earth, and that's how it goes. Sunday, the next is moon day, and there is Mars, and so every luminaries have one layer, and the stars are supposed to be in its own layer. So could be that's why.
That's actually the to interrupt for a second. That the Ptolemy model.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Prior to you have Tycho Brahe, right? Tycho Brahe, and then later Kepler,
Yeah.
right? But you also have Ptolemy,
Right.
P-T-O-L, Ptolemy.
Right.
And a lot of
Yes.
that model, if you just Google that, it has these concentric spherical shells that you're talking about, actually. So I think there was a connection between the kind of like geocentric, but not necessarily the biblical cosmological model, but the geocentric model, and a connection between that. Like they were adapting or deriving that from what you're talking about.
Yeah, they're trying to hijack it. That's all they do is try to hijack it.
Hijack it, repackage it. Yeah.
That's what the Greeks did. Originally we had prophecy. The Greeks invented philosophy to replace prophecy. Philosophy of man to replace prophecy from the Most High, from the Holy Creator. There we go.
Hey, can I inject my thoughts? Since we are talking about one of my favorite subjects, the firmament. Yes. Think about this: it's the creative house, to create our creator. The roof over your creation is going to be laden with metals and all the kinetic energy, electromagnetic levitation. That is actually the roof of his creation, and nothing is going to get through. In fact, think about what Dr. John Mack suggested, the Department of Defense. Nothing has or will ever penetrate the glass firmament. And another guy, Brett Salisbury, and I think Rob's familiar with this one, the Van Allen radiation belt, nothing more than the firmament made by the Creator. It's a glass ceiling, is a term to describe the unseen, Gregory, yet unbreakable barrier.
I like that. I like that. And the arrogance of the Luciferian occult to think that, and also the Tower of Babel, to think that you can ascend and penetrate. And rockets are the new Tower of Babel. That's all those are. It's a way of accessing, penetrating the veil of the firmament. The hubris to think as if the Lord is not up to the task of making something you can't get through. I mean,
absolutely. That's what the Tower of Babel was all about. Building something high enough to pierce the dome, to pierce the firmament rakia, right? And the actual emblem of the icon of Disneyland shows that, with their castle tower piercing the overhead, the arc overhead. Disney shows that. Same story.
I think the second book of Enoch, we're all familiar with that to a certain extent. Not that everyone's read it, but who hasn't heard of Enoch, the book of Enoch, if you study in close cosmology? People, when I was studying or writing about scientism, everyone was emailing me and saying, we like your work, but you need to read the Ethiopian book of Enoch. And I kind of just like, okay, that's another thing for me to look into. I got like all these books I'm doing. But then I started looking into it and I go, oh, wow. And one of the things that I was seeing is that I think it was second book of Enoch, there was these details that said, and then I made firm the circle of heaven, right? The circle of heaven, and fashioned it like crystal. This is from the second book of Enoch, I recall. Moist and dry, like glass and ice. Okay, think of the kind of paradoxical image from this book. And I showed the waters and other elements their path, and I saw that it was good. Thus I made fast the firmament and fixed it above the water, and the evening and the morning were the second day. So there it is, crystal, moist and dry, which is kind of paradoxical. Glass, glassy, icy, cold, and there's the quasi-vitreous metallic aspects to it. And I like what Vikka's saying, that there's these layers where it's capped on the very top with a hard cap, and below it there's these gradients of quasi-vitreous, permeable, fluidic.
Operation Fishbowl proved there are layers. Yes, there are layers.
Because Rob, SpaceX has this whole thing. You've seen it on the news, right? Where all of a sudden it's like somebody's water skiing across the sky with a rocket.
Yes.
What the hell is that?
Several videos show that there's this almost like water up there. Yes, exactly.
Like they're like they're jet skiing off the firmament.
Well said. Yes, that they're skipping off of it like waves, like on water. Absolutely.
But they can't penetrate it. They can't go into the depths of it because the gradients get less vitreous and more.
Yes, it gets thicker as they move deeper into it. Yes. Now, and you said cold.
Yeah.
There's the adiabatic cooling. Adiabatic cooling until it's infinitely cold up there. There you go.
Oh,
cold.
Interesting. Yeah. So here's where physics, all the physics of just natural physics meets what's supposed to be theoretical enclosed cosmological research.
There you go. Meets its end.
It turns out it's quite scientific. It's not so theoretical after a while.
Exactly. Science proves the Bible. That's why we say, Gregory, with our flatten the curve, our motto is this: we close the gap between Scripture and science.
Yeah,
we're talking about it right now. Scripture and science, there is no difference.
Yeah. Oh boy, that's a big one. I have a friend who's a devout Catholic, and he knows the Bible inside and out in Aramaic and Greek. And then I mentioned to him, what we're talking about, and I gave him about 12 books I wrote on biblical cosmology. And he's like, no way. I'm going, okay, wait a minute. You're a Bible scholar. I'm giving you 218 scriptures from the Bible.
Yes, the proof the earth isn't moving. There's the dome over it. It's circular. It's the bóveda in Spanish. Bóveda. Yeah. The earth is a vault. It's plain as day.
Well, and how do you put 4 pillars on a ball? Think about that. The 4 pillars of the earth. I don't know if that could work on a ball.
How does that happen, right? 16, at least 15 verses that say the earth is firm, fixed, steadfast, immovable, as if on pillars, so that it shall not be moved forever. There it is. Yeah. This Catholic guy, he's lying to you, Gregory. He cannot. He cannot escape.
He's not malicious. He's just self-deceiving himself. He's a physics expert. He's got a master's. He works with Lockheed, but he can't get around the idea.
Gregory, he doesn't even realize how deceived he is. That's the problem.
That's the thing.
Well, where did
they just don't even realize they are deceived?
But where did the Big Bang? Okay. This name will ring a bell for everybody, hopefully. George Lemaitre. Okay.
Lemaitre. Yeah, he's essentially the Big Bang.
He's a Jesuit Roman Catholic priest who invented the Big Bang theory. I mean, he didn't invent it, but he kind of resurrected it, And so it comes from the Catholic Church. I have a Catholic friend who believes in Big Bang. Well, no wonder, because the Catholic Church teaches Big Bang.
Well, of course, yes.
Well, how do they get away with Genesis if they're teaching that, though, really?
Well, they said that God created, it's all everything's literal, except that's a big metaphor to them.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly, right? And the reason the Catholics disprove the Bible is because of Martin Luther. Martin Luther, first of all, he destroyed the Catholic myth. He exposed the Catholic myth, and then he printed the Bible, which destroys everything the Catholics ever said. And so immediately the Catholics, Rome, went about to disprove the Bible, and that's what the Renaissance is. That's the Renaissance, and that's what you're talking about. That's why they don't even know their own Bible. It's like they don't read it.
They like what they like, though.
All right, guys.
Right,
guys. We got Eddie joining us. He just joined the panel right now. Hello, Eddie. How are you, brother?
Hey, Eddie. How you doing, brother?
Hello, Vikka, Gene, Gregory,
hello
Rob, and Mark.
Eddie.
Sorry I'm late, but it's early morning, Monday here in Japan.
Good morning, brother.
Wow.
A lot of traffic there in Nagoya, Japan, all over.
Yeah, a lot of traffic, busy morning.
Yeah,
no, but the trains are packed this morning. Yeah.
Well, these are like videos I've run across, and Eddie Flat, I've seen your videos. This is great.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Flat Earth Banjo.
Eddie has some amazing. He has some amazing videos, and he's also the author of the 16 emergency landing that proves flat Earth.
It's a pretty tour de force collection of people we have here today.
Yes, it is. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
We are missing Billy Zick. That's it.
This
go ahead.
podcast is getting better and better.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and Gregory has already agreed to come on and do some presentation in Flat's Curve too. So that's encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Oh, would be great, Gregory. You know, Gregory, we wanted you to be the first part, but we didn't turn up. We know we were already half the way, but yeah,
Yeah,
you're
that's
showing
fine.
for the second one.
I was giving you some material and videos that I've done in shows, like right when you were releasing the film, so I kind of figured it wasn't going to make it in.
Yeah, we needed something that you had to produce for the documentary, because that's why we wanted something a little bit exclusive than just to take it from some interview, because
Yeah, that makes sense.
so we'll work it out. Yeah, we'll work it out for the next. But it's awesome, bro. So I wanted to ask you one question, Greg.
Yeah.
You also, Mark was into UFO research. Even myself, I was into UFO research before Flat Earth, and you too, I think so. So once you realized Flat Earth, did it change your, what perspective did you change about the UFO and the alien life or the extraterrestrial? Like,
Well, okay, I was never into alien research though. I watched sci-fi my whole life and all that, but I've never really bought into it fully. Though I did study astrophysics with one of the top SETI, the guy who invented the SETI program, Frank Drake.
yeah,
I don't, you ever,
yeah,
and he's a
yeah,
very
the
famous.
SETI, yeah.
Yeah, and Frank Drake did Frank Drake's equation about the distribution of carbon and hydrogen and the
The
likelihood.
Drake equation's
The
great.
Drake equation, yeah. Well, he was my professor, so
Wow,
I used to hang out with Frank Drake and talk, pick his brain, and I
that's
had a
crazy.
yeah. It's pretty wild. People say, "Well, you knew Frank Drake?" Yeah, I had classes with Frank Drake,
Wow.
and so he used to talk about, and very nice guy, very gentle, and he's talking about the distribution of carbon and hydrogen supports the idea that there's alien life based on a statistical model. That's Drake's equation.
On the
Um,
low end of everything, it's the numbers just astronomical when he's kind
Numerals.
with all the estimates.
and you're just playing around with mathematics.
Yeah,
It's you're not proving anything. Okay,
right.
so
Yeah.
I've never really bought in fully to the alien thing, and then so my first book, I decided to kind of rip that thing apart. And what I said, I basically said, the whole, even all these, the Anunnaki and the whole, all the mythologies that come out of ancient aliens and the German guy that did that. The
So have you read the West Penray papers?
Yeah, I was reading those too. My first book, and so what I decided.
Wow,
Yeah, my
yeah.
very first book. I have Wes Penrose in my very first book 5 years ago. But one of the things I right out of the shoots, I said I'm not buying any of this. I think what we have is demonic entities and demonic forces, and we have an agenda going back. Because remember, this is all connected. You need Big Bang so that, or no, you need gravity so that you can have a Big Bang, so that you can have evolution, so that you can have the possibility of a heliocentric universe, which leads to the idea of the plausibility of alien life, which leads to the plausibility of an alien messiah finally coming back to Earth and being
There
announced
you go.
as. You see, you need all these things. You can't have one without the other. You need
Blue beam.
gravity, Operation Bluebeam. And then I wrote a book called One Deception to Rule Them All. It's actually one of my favorite books I've ever written.
There you go. There
And
you
the
go.
one,
Yeah,
the one,
excellent.
and,
And Flat Earth, yeah, and Flat
and
Earth
I,
is the only key that destroys all of them, right?
and yeah, that's why enclosed cosmology is so important, because without the understanding of what we're talking about today, it's a Trojan horse. Heliocentrism is a Trojan horse. With heliocentrism as a Trojan horse, inside the horse is gravity, Big Bang, evolutionary theory, the
Yes. Yes.
possibility of alien life, and then the idea that ancient aliens created mankind, and those aliens
Yeah.
are pissed. They're pissed, and they're coming.
Transpermia.
They're coming. Panspermia. They're coming back. It's the plot to Prometheus by Ridley Scott. It's the same
Right.
plot. They're
Yeah.
coming. They're coming back,
Yeah.
and
They're
they're
coming back
mad.
to
They're
retake everything.
and they're going to destroy the creation went awry. They're going to destroy all of mankind and maybe just save a few, or whatever plot they're going to spin. The point is, they needed all these things, these ducks in a row, to arrive at the alien deception agenda,
There
which
you
is
go.
public.
Alien
And
transformation.
so that's my take on the whole, like, is there alien life? No, there's demonic realms, there's demonic entities,
And,
there's demonic.
and that's their creation story. That's their hijacked creation story that looks kind of like the real creation story, but that's
And
their version of it.
that's it in a nutshell. Actually, it's not just
Yeah.
heliocentrism. It's they need this because they need alien life to come back and say, we created mankind, we're your god, Jesus Christ was a space cowboy. That's what they're going to say. I'm not kidding. They're going to say Jesus Christ was just an alien, and he did a great job, but we're coming to finish the job. We're into the age of Aquarius now. You see, that's the idea. We're moving from Pisces to Aquarius. It's the new age. Christ is now gone, and the aliens have returned. And I have a sneaking suspicion in the next few years, we're going to see this happen.
And it's possible. Yeah, it's possible that their next step could be this fake alien invasion, because that's their they could really do this deception so easy, because everybody got into all this deception we've been having, from the time of Barack Obama, to Trump and everything. The people are thinking the next time they're gonna get better. The Barack Obama was like, he's a colored president. He's gonna change the world. He's gonna make different decisions. And the same shit what Trump, everybody was like Trump, and so they have to come up with something. And now even with the GBGB stuff, the people, many are woken up, so they need now something of all the technology they have. And go ahead.
You're reminding me of you're really reminding me of something that I'm working on. I wrote a book called Release the Kraken. I got banned on Facebook for talking about my own book, by the way. 30-day ban.
Oh yeah, I know about that. That's an awesome. Yeah, I didn't read the book, but I know about it. Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing. Well, it's one thing to be talking about like something that's a taboo that's on whatever, but it's my own book, and they're banning me for talking about my own book. But anyway, the thing, the Kraken, Release the Kraken, was a concept I was coming up with. There's a thing that I came up with called the comprehensive Kraken, and I'll just tell you what it is, and I'll let you guys respond to it. Okay, this is what I see as a combination and a distillation of these 8 things working either in synchronous fashion, comprehensively, or in linear fashion, or they throttle them. They work one out, then they pull it back, and they bring another in, then they pull it back and bring another in, or bring 2 in. And here are the 8 things I came across. And I think you guys will get this. I might have to change the words to make it kind of like safe, so we don't get censored. All right, the first thing is the I'll just call it the pandemic hoax, or plandemic. I think I can say that. Using jab bioweapons. In other words, there is no virus. Okay, there's a jab. There's a jab. You're right, right. But there's a jab which contains a bioweapon, which will appear to be a real virus. Okay, that's
the weapon. Which is
exactly. The jab is
the magic potion.
Right.
Just
follow what it is. And the jab is the disease.
Right. Okay. So that's one. So hold that in your mind, because there's 8 things. So that's one. Just categorize that in your catalog it. Okay. 2. I'll put it this: FIVEG radiation. You see what I'm talking about, right?
FIVEG.
Okay. FIVEG radiation in conjunction with GO, the goo. The black goo. Okay, so there's 2 things. The first thing I said, and then this FIVEG radiation in conjunction, working together in a magnetic field, right? Mm-hmm. With GO, graphene. Okay. All right. The third thing is the climate change hoax. But they're using weaponized weather modification weapons. That's what's going on. Okay. Chemtrail. Everything else. HARP technology in Alaska. Okay, so there's 3 things. Hold those in your mind. Okay, 3 things.
This is Morpheus material. They torched the sky. There it is. That's what he meant when he torched the sky. That's it.
Exactly. And they got so there's 3 things. So hold those in your mind. 4th thing: cyber attack hoaxes using the alphabet agencies, KGB, CIA, Mossad. Okay, for an intentional, controlled power grid decommission. It's all, of course, intentional. It's a controlled. The trick is it's a Skynet. It's a controlled, very tightly controlled collapse of the world's power grid. Right, using ostensibly it's because of quote unquote cyber attacks, but it's not that. Okay, those 4 things. Here's the 5th thing: EMP attacks. Right, EMP attacks, where the power grid of the world just fails. Communications go down worldwide, and it's blamed on. And
that's a big deal.
Well, yeah, and it's blamed. It's again, and they're blaming it on cyber attacks. Okay, so there's 5 things. So all you guys hold those 5 things in your mind. Right. 6, World War III, Ukraine, Taiwan and China, the whole thing. Right. 7, fake asteroid and fake comet impacts, which we're seeing coming out at NASA right now. They're announcing, oh, there's a geomagnetic storm that's attacked. I mean,
all over the place.
Right. And they're announcing a comet got near. So they're announcing that just like
asteroids are flying near the Earth, blah, blah, blah. And they're also announcing aliens. Every government of the world, every Air Force all around the world is announcing that they're seeing alien spacecraft and aliens all over the place.
Which leads to point 8. Okay, so there's 7 things: pandemic, 5G radiation, climate change, cyber attacks, EMPs, World War III, fake asteroids. 8, alien disclosure hoax using Project Bluebeam technologies. All right, now the reason I mentioned, so you have 8 things that I've mentioned. Now, they're throttling them. 2 years on the pandemic. Back the throttle, put the gear in second. Now move into climate change. Back the gear out. Now let's talk about World War III in Ukraine. Now let's add 2 at once, pandemic and World War II. Now back off on the war and add some more climate change. Now let's add an asteroid. Maybe there's a
take some food away.
Yeah, and so you see what they're eventually they'll get to the. Go ahead.
Wars and rumors of wars. That's it. Wars and rumors of wars.
But it's you see, it's way more than war though, because what it is, it's the pandemic, it's the famine, it's everything.
Yeah,
but they're rumors
of bullshit.
Bullshit and more rumors of bullshit. Yeah. So it's basically it's essentially a very well architected throttling of at least 8 different scenarios and agendas, so that they can put the pedal on the metal in a contingent upon how people are reacting. They know what to push. Maybe they need a climate change thing. Maybe they need to push the alien disclosure this week. Maybe they need to push.
And they have the technology. Greg, they have the technology to do that. Everything, each and everything you mentioned.
And so that's why I think we're having these kinds of conversations where
unlimited technology. Yes,
it's like the end game. Like they're at the end game. They know they won. They've won in terms of the world. In terms of salvation through Christ, they've won a thing. But you know that's why I would tell people.
Another thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was waiting for a break. They know they're at the end. There's not much else that they can use to deceive people, because with this COVID thing, they've woken up a lot of people. So there's not much else they can deceive with.
That's why I tell people, do these radio shows, I tell them, they're like, so what's the solution, Mr. Garrett? I go, there's no solution. You don't conquer Lucifer. You don't conquer Lucifer. Like the battle is the Lord's. It's not your battle. All you can do is in confession of your own sin. You have to confess the
right.
The solution is Jesus Christ. The solution is truly Jesus Christ. There you go.
It's not even
okay.
That's the solution.
That's it.
Okay. Speaking about what Greg is mentioning, Greg, I want to say that from past at least a year, I just have to think about a product, and the product appears in the mobile. I don't know if anybody else experienced this.
I've had the same
but
thing.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, it's just showing that how much technology has been advanced, and they could be manipulating us through these technologies and through this vibration and all these signals.
I walked
you had something interesting to say about that.
I walked outside the other day and I was thinking about, I wanted to get this like charger for my battery, because I have this car that I want to have a trickle charge with a solar cell, so I don't have to take off the negative battery cable, because batteries will drain themselves if you don't use the car. Mm-hmm. And so I put the solar cell, it's a trickle on the right and left, positive, negative, and it just trickles through. It keeps your battery good. I was just thinking about it. I was walking around outside. And I went inside and I was like checking the email, and then an advertisement comes for a trickle sale solar. And I was like, wait a minute.
No way.
Yeah.
And thinking about it.
Well, the thing, I probably made allusions to buying a battery a year ago on Amazon, whatever. It thinks ahead. The AI algorithms do their thing, and they
exactly. Yeah. I'm using that technology already. I just think about products now.
And so that is, people talk about the B system, like the AI, the artificial intelligence B system. It's like a digital system in a way, you could say. Like the Antichrist system is a digital system.
Right. Hey, also, Gregory.
Like you mentioned, the hive mind to digital technology. Yeah. It's so much evolved. You wanna break down on something on that, Greg? It's so interesting, that one.
Yeah, I read a lot about
like the liquid crystal.
Yeah, the hive mind idea, it's the idea that they don't want singular people in singular computer nodes. They want to connect all these digital devices and nanotechnological microchips, including people. See, they look at people as if they're just cell phones. You're not a human being. You're just another thing to connect. And they want, and you know how they, the connective networks where you have everything's connected and you can you use your Alexa. I don't have Alexa, but you can use it to run your entire home, right? Well, they want to use AI, quantum computing systems to connect all human minds together and control them with one fell swoop from a central command. They don't want to have to send you a message and send you a message. And they want everything talking to each other as one networked hive, like a bee system, a beehive, a hive mind.
Let me add something to what Gregory was saying, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Gregory, what you were suggesting in those the 8 things that they are doing, and don't forget the cyborg effect.
Yeah.
That they're trying to reduce the Earth's population of people. They think there's too many people here. I went to the Georgia Guidestones a year ago.
Yeah.
You know, it's 500, half a billion people they want to reduce the population to. And it is written in stone, by the way. You know, the American
literally
Guidestones. Yeah. So you got to remember all the magic potion, what it's going to do, along with the microwave radiation from the 5G, and one day they're going to have 6G. That's going to reduce the oxygen particulates in the atmosphere. People aren't going to be able to breathe. So you're going to automatically, people are going to start getting sicker, especially when they get the magic potion. Yeah. So they're doing their job. So that's the most important additive is eliminating most of the population and let robots take that place.
Well, the Guidestones say they want to kill essentially 7 billion and have 500 million left as their slave. They didn't say it in those words, but that's really what they're trying to do.
Right.
They're trying to inject people with this goo. This is called the black goo, right? So that you're magnetic. You don't realize the black goo is a superconductor, and you're now magnetically entrained and connected to their quote unquote Skynet system. Okay. So the people that cannot survive the duress and stress of this magnetic communicate the superconducting communication between geo black goo and the quote unquote 5G 6G, all that system, those people who survive it will be converted through genetic engineering to their biomachine androidic slaves. That's the 500 million.
There you go.
So they'll be zombies?
Kind of like zombie machine, like a Ghost in the Shell with Scarlett Johansson. There'll be nanosynthetic shelled machine consciousness, neurolaced, nanotechnologically driven.
Do you think they'll have their own thoughts, or they'll all be
no.
driven?
You know, everything's programmed. Only thoughts you'll be allowed to have are the thoughts of the program you have. That's kind of how it is now. People basically are programmed
kind of like RoboCop.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, RoboCop. Yeah. And so everybody is connected to their digital system and genetically engineered, maybe to have a third DNA lattice diamond strand of DNA where they're not even human, right? And so, yeah, think about that. You add a third genetic strand, you have a diamond lattice genetic strand. You're kind of a hybrid chimera monster under the control of this Luciferian beast system. And that's exactly what I think they're going to do. Those
Greg,
who can
you're describing the next step from 1984, 1984,
1985.
what you're describing right there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's mixed with Brave New World because it's not just a draconian system. It's also death by pleasure. You know, death by pleasure. People will seek so much pleasure, right? And they'll seek death, and they won't be able to have it because their consciousnesses will be uploaded into a nanosynthetic silicon shell of sorts, right? So they will be experiencing horrific images, and they can't escape it because they're a programmed entity. It's like a program gone awry. If you ever watched Ready Player One, the movie with Steven Spielberg's movie, Ready Player One,
I've not. Sorry.
It reveals the game.
Yeah, it's a sci-fi.
The virtual reality game that, the metaverse that Facebook's rolled out.
Really? Wow.
All of this, there's a scene in it. You really should see the movie for this scene. There's a scene.
Truth in the movies, lies in the news. There we go.
It's all there. It's hiding it in plain sight. There's a scene in the movie where they actually have a scene from The Shining. Now, remember The Shining by Stephen King?
Sure.
And in the movie, there's like a guy chasing in an ice garden, an ice sculpture garden, chasing somebody with an axe like forever. Okay. Now imagine what the Luciferian elite will do with the types of scenarios that they, snuff film.
Oh yeah, virtual memory. In other words,
they'll keep you forever plugged
style.
in, torturing you forever and ever, eternally. That's the hell that the Bible talks
That's
about.
hell. Yes, exactly.
You see? There's no way out. The only way out is to actually via Christ. You have to accept
Jesus Christ. There we go.
If you don't accept that you have sinned, if you don't accept you have sinned, you have to start with that. And you cannot access Christ. I don't care how many words like, oh, I accept Christ. It's bullshit. You have to know that you are sinful to be contrite, to really accept Christ. And that is your only way out of this beast system, as far as I can tell.
We must accept Christ as universal truth. Jesus Christ is universal truth.
And it's it's not just personal sins. It's the sins of the world. It's the original sin. It's not just Rob has. Not like, oh, fornication and drinking too much. And those are grave and venial and mortal sins. Those are personal. It's the original sin of mankind that we're being redeemed for. And I think most people are not going to go for it. They're going to go for the beast system. And that's your 7 billion dead right there.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that.
That's their plan and that's their myth, because it ain't going to happen.
If you seek the world, you're going to get the world. And you're going to you'll have eternal life in hell.
Well said. Seek and you shall find.
Yeah, and the way these people have everything so much contaminated and toxic, like so much toxic everywhere, and the people so much confused, and also with all this jibby jabby and all this, it's the people, even if they try their best, it's so difficult to be in the right way.
Yeah. That's why I'm saving food and water, like anybody else. But I realize that the game isn't for me to like overcome the beast system. The game is for me to like stay along. I write as many books as possible to lead people to Christ. That's all I'm doing at this point. And then when it's my time, what else can you do? Like, you're not going to survive the beast system. It's like a joke to even, save some food, save some water, see how far you can go. Live in the woods. I don't care what you want to do. You're not going to survive. It's like taking a Q-tip and trying to attack a jet. It doesn't work. It's not going to work. You can't
survive the world war.
Yeah, even the woke ones are going to be phased out. The rest they're going to kill it. But
I say put all your eggs. You have like different diversifications of belief structures and faith. I'd say if you study the occult, which is what I do, I reveal the occult and the wickedness of the Hermetic system of Babylon. That's pretty much what my books are doing. And the reason I do that is so give you, not you, but give one a really crystal clear view of the mechanisms and operations of evil and the occult, so that you finally understand that Christ is the antidote. That's what I'm doing. I'm not writing 35 books of praise Jesus. I mean, my books don't talk about it in that way. I talk about the occult, and the natural logical conclusion is Christ. You see, if you can't understand that evil's real, I don't care how many times you say, I love Christ, I accept Christ. It's hollow and superficial until you know that there's really an evil that you are being spared for or from by accepting Christ. And that's
it's like showing you the darkness. That you have to see the dark to appreciate the light. Yeah,
they go together. I'm not trying to be Masonic and dualistic. I'm just saying there is a counterpart to the Antichrist, which would be the Christ. Okay, so I think everybody who has enough breath left to the very end will have to try to be bringing people to Christ, and that's all you can do. You can try to save food and save yourself, but it's just not going to, after a few years, what are you going to do? Radiation everywhere, toxic poisons, chemicals, stresses, war. How are you going to escape that?
There you go. Step one, recognize there is evil and it's trying to get us.
So
we have to recognize that.
So it should be said that everything we're saying in the shows like this should be contextualized in the kind of rubric that Christ is where the reason for flat Earth and talking about the rakia, the firmament, and rockets in the vacuum of space. It's an empty academic exercise to talk about any. In fact, it's probably worse for you to go deep into enclosed cosmology and try to get involved in the technical aspects and prove it if you don't have Christ as the resolution. Because what you're doing is you're engaging and entertaining all these extremely compelling ideas that lead to a Luciferian New Age idea of things, which is happens. A lot of flat earthers get New Agey. They start talking about the New Age and the electromagnetic aspects and for me, it's what does the Bible say? Better to pluck out your right eye than to sin, or how that goes, Rob? Like better to
indeed.
Better
if thy right arm is evil, well, better to live without it, of course.
If thy right eye offendeth thee, better to. In other words, if you're going to be sinning with the knowledge of enclosed cosmology, better to not have any of it and just find Christ. Because the goal is not enclosed cosmology or revealing it. That's just more Luciferian, mystical, secret knowledge. And that's why a lot of flat earthers get very mystical and occultist.
That's right.
Because they're approaching it in the hermetic alchemical way, which leads to great mysteries and great, that's not what you're after. You're not after great occult knowledge. That's what Lucifer offered in the garden. Eat this apple, the apple being the occult knowledge, right? Which includes flat earth. It's all involved in digging into the mysteries of God and knowing the truth. And so it's a very slippery slope to talk about enclosed cosmology without
Christ. Hey, Gregory. Yeah. Gregory, it's Matthew chapter 7, verse 3. Why do you look at the speck of a sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye?
Oh no, but I got it wrong. That's about sin per se. I'm talking about I guess that's kind of the same thing. It's where if you're going to be sinning, it's better to cut off your hand than to have a hand that can sin. That's kind of what isn't there something, one of the passages, scriptures that says, is that the one?
Yes, you're exactly right, Greg. It talks about if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out. And if thy hand offend thee, cut it off. If thy right hand offends the left hand, cut it off. Exactly.
And there's probably more scriptures that allude to that. It's just the idea.
Better it is to go through life without the hand than to have it offend thee and it corrupts your soul. Of course. That's
like a more down to earth thing in a modern culture. Like say, let's say you're drinking a lot of alcohol, right? And you access alcohol from lavish amounts of money that you have. Well, would be better to be dirt poor than to have money and be able to access alcohol. It's kind of like that idea.
Sure.
And
makes
so
a lot of sense.
This basic understanding of what sin. I think we all start to get to that point where you'd rather be crippled and weak in the spirit in some ways, or rather than to be strong in the flesh, because that leads to great sin. And I'm not saying you're going to you don't get rid of your sin. I mean, you still have original sin. You still have to understand that you have sin. I'm just talking about
depend on Christ. We are sinful, yes.
The flesh is temporary, though.
Yeah, I mean that's a big debate. Go ahead.
Matthew 5:30. And if thy right hand offend thee, cut it off and cast it from thee. Same with thy eye.
Thank you, Rob.
That's it, Rob.
Thank you. God bless you.
For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish.
Still there?
Oops, Rob, you got cut.
Okay, sorry. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Go ahead.
There it is.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's it. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's better that one of thy members be cut off from thee than thy whole body should be cast into hell. You're saying it right there, Greg. There you go.
Yeah, I was kind of mutilating it, and you got it perfect there. But that's it. And I try to. But I think we have to remember there's a difference, and I think even the Catholic Church talks about venial and grave and mortal sins, right? And I'm not trying to say that the Catechism is the Word of God. I'm just saying that's a way of looking at it. The idea that we have personal sins. And I'm not a priest or a theologist. I'm just looking at it like a person looking into the Bible, right? And there's a big difference between personal sin, like fornication and theft and murder. And I'm not saying any of that's good. But the main thing I think we need to understand is the original sin of mankind at the fall, which I think, to my understanding, was more of a corruption of the genetics, the Nephilim. Because people say, well, how did Adam sin? How does that carry to me? Well, because in the same way that if your mother had, I don't know, tuberculosis, or let's say diabetes, you may have a genetic predisposition for diabetes. Well, if Adam and Eve were in a fallen state, and then it led to a genetic corruption, and Noah, the flood finally had to get rid of everyone that was genetically corrupted, and only Noah's bloodline, genetic bloodline, was spared. It sounds to me like it was a genetic situation back in the days of Noah. And we're now flash forward to the year 2022. It's the same issue. It's a genetic shaping.
The bottom line, Greg, is Adam and Eve brought about mortality. It's not a sin. It's just he made us mortal so we could live our lives. If we weren't mortal, we could not have our experience.
Well, we had eternal life connected to not the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, but to the tree of life, which people don't talk about the tree of life that much, but that was the second tree of the garden. And the reason, as far as I know, the Lord said you're prohibited from eating or going to that tree now. You're cut off from the tree of life, because being wicked and defiled, you could no longer live forever. How could the Lord let you live eternally as a wicked creature? So he said, okay, you have a 120 years, and then Christ was able to redeem his creation.
And also, Gregory, the book of Enoch, think about the war in the heavenly realm when they had a war in heaven, and when God casted the fallen angels down. Of course, Lucifer did take 1/3 of the angels, of God's angels, and so goes the birthright of 33rd Freemasonry. 1/3 of the angels. And the flood, before the flood, when they perverted the God's seed of man, they tried to eliminate the God's seed of man, and God's wrath came down with the flood at that point.
Well, let's connect what you're saying, like Mark. Let's take what you're saying in terms of the days of Noah and the genetic defilement leading to the necessity for the flood to literally purify the earth of the fallen genetic creature that formerly was God's, creature, but it became defiled because of this, the Nephilim, I'm assuming. But now flash forward to the year 2022. It's the same situation, genetic defilement. Now, what are they using this time? The jab, right? They're genetically altering
the jibby jab.
The
magic potion.
The magic potion.
The magic potion.
Or the juice. Some people call it the juice, So what's happening is they're kind of like
JEWCE.
Yeah, I know.
They're like contaminating the whole race, and there needs to be another flood. If you want to do it naturally.
Well, actually, Vikka, they contaminating the soul is what they contaminate.
Well, yeah, it's like changing the DNA structure of God's creation to a hybrid that it's impure.
Amen.
But I think what we have here is, and I think the Bible talks about, and maybe Rob, you could find it pretty fast because you probably have a Bible or access. Okay. But the idea of it was trial by, it was the purification through the flood in the days of Noah. In 2022 or maybe 2030, it's trial by tribulation through fire. Okay, so we're not going to have a flood, as far as I know. We're going to have the fire. Now let's talk.
The end times will be purified by fire. It'll all be burned. The firmament wrapped together as a scroll, and the whole thing will be burnt. Yes.
But let me propose something.
Rebuilt again.
Let me propose something to you guys. Tell me what you think of this. I don't know the answer. It's a theory I have. The idea of fire, purification by fire in this age, if you mix electromagnetic field of the earth and supercharge it, and have it accessed and controlled by a 5G, 6G Skynet mechanism, and then you connect it to the black goo, which is a superconductor, think of the fire. Think of the magnetic fire that would engulf all of God's creation. Because they would be filled with this black goo, right, which is a superconductor, and you turn on the 5G system at, let's say, 60 gigahertz or 90. I don't know what it's going to be, and that could be the trial by fire. Those who are connected into the beast system will be burnt. I'm not necessarily like fire, but electromagnetic fire.
Interesting. Yeah, they've got a template for all of their destruction in the Bible itself. They just take the Bible descriptions and put it into technology instead of God's miraculous power, and put it in their technology, and they're just mimicking what the Bible describes.
That's why I call in my first book I talked, or I forgot which book, but it was called Climate Change. It was called Controlled Collapse. I think what they do is they follow the Bible like a blueprint. There's prophecy in the Bible.
There you go.
They follow it like a blueprint. They make things happen that they're reading in the Bible, and then they think that they can control the collapse. It's called controlled apocalypse. Really, they're controlling the apocalypse.
Well said. By the way, Greg, they actually write about this. The document is called the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion.
Yeah, I know that.
There you go. That's exactly what it does.
We probably can't even talk about that on the air.
And I've read it. When I read it, I realized this is impossible. It'll never happen. It's almost fanciful if you read it. Yeah, it's almost outlandish.
It's
like
it's
the book
chilling. It's blood curdling. When I read it, it was the scariest thing I've ever read in my life. It's like it's so well done. It's like Lucifer wrote it. It's so well crafted.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Yes, that was my perception as well. And it's like it's real. Some of it's very real upon us. The large magnitude, the extent of it is impossible. It's outlandish. But the basis of it does exist in the world today. If you ask for the world, you're going to get the world. You want to learn about it? There it is. Read that document.
You could probably mix Albert Pike, Scottish Rite General Albert Pike, Freemasonry, Morals and Dogma, and the 3 World Wars. I think the protocols and that document by Albert Pike, I think it's kind of coalescing from the same source, where we have a third world war, which is going to be Russian, Ukrainian drawing in the Muslim world and Israel, and that's your what do they call unleashing the nihilist? You read the third letter.
The nihilist. Yeah. NWO is remember here, and this ties into the NWO. The NWO is the New World Order as opposed to the Catholic World Order. Now they're using governments and science to control, which are the nihilists, instead of the religionists, which was the Vatican.
Oh, you're talking about Malachi Martin, Keys to This Blood. He wrote a book called Keys to This Blood. Malachi Martin, who was a Jesuit Vatican priest, and he said just what you said. He said the Vatican would be one of these forces going against the New World. I mean, there's different types of New World Orders that are like warring together.
And there it is. And let me throw this out. World War III. We are in World War III, which is to destroy the Christian world and destroy the Muslims and everybody else, the Zionists. And World War III has no end. World War III is using terrorism to destabilize the rest of the world and depopulate the world. World War III has no end. Words. There we go.
Wow.
Yeah. We are. It's correct that we are in the Third World War because of the GBJ. They are taking out loads of people without fighting. And I want to give a shout out to the book about Gregory. Your book, Release the Kraken. That people should really check it out. There's so much amazing stuff in there because as we speak about the technology and how they are really going to control the people with this liquid crystal. You were speaking about, Gregory, so it's so we're gonna do one thing. We're gonna take a break, and maybe if you want to share something about that a little bit in detail, so that the people can understand and maybe look into your book, would be great. We're just gonna take a short break. All right, guys?
Okay.
Yes. Good enough.
All right.
We're off the air.
There is nothing you cannot be, there's nothing you cannot do, there's nothing you cannot have, nothing you cannot have. You are the most magnificent, the most remarkable, the most splendid being God has ever created. Who could reject such wondrous magnificence? But you do not know who you are. And you think you are a great deal less. I tell you this, you are your own maker. You set the guidelines. And you decide how well you have done, how well you are doing. For you are the one that decided who and what you really are, and who you want to be. The process of creation starts with thought, an idea, conception, visualization. Everything you see was once someone's idea. Nothing exists in your world that did not first exist as pure thought. Next comes the word. Everything you say is a thought expressed. It is creative and sends forth creative energy into the universe. Next comes action. Actions are words. Words are thoughts expressed. Thoughts are ideas. Go first to your highest thought about yourself. Imagine the you that you would be if you lived that thought every day. Imagine what you would think, do, and say, and how you would respond to what others do and say. This whole process is a massive move to consciousness. What you will find out if you undertake this challenge is that you've spent half your life unconscious. That is to say, unaware on a conscious level of what you are choosing in your thoughts, words, and deeds until you experience the aftermath of them. Then when you experience these results, you deny that your thoughts, words, and deeds had anything to do with them.
I want to remind you to continue to dream and dream big.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. What an awesome show we're having today. I'm just going to give a quick shout out to the people in the chat. We have Dr. Frankenstein, Jay Daddy, hello, brother, how are you doing? Elvin Gold, Carl Fletcher, Jess Palmer, Servus Die. There's so many people. Herman Hendrad, hey, hola, hermano, Real Truth Seekers, DN. We've got, who else? We got AZ. Who else? We've got Hydro Genie and a few other people. So welcome back to the show, guys. We have Eddie Allen Carr. We have got Mark Hollander. We got Rob Taylor, Genie Edited, and our special guest, Gregory. So the book I was asking about just before the break, Release the Kraken. It's no opinions. It's backed by real science. And one of the most interesting part I liked about was about this, how this liquid crystal, they work and through this 5G stuff. Greg, you want to add something about that?
Yeah, the one thing I need to say, by the way, Amazon is constantly trying to, by the way, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Amazon's constantly trying to just ban my account, and I had to make a backup account, and then I started putting books on that account. They finally deleted an entire account. I lost about 10 books. They're just gone. They didn't give me an explanation. They said, and they mentioned Release the Kraken being controversial. So that's not even, you can't even get that one. So I have one account left with 25 books on it. I'm trying to put them all over the internet, like Lulu Publishing. The RTS, I'm connecting my Amazon account to RTS, the website.
Excellent.
And then I'm trying to upload books. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Greg, you are there on the RTS, but we want you to feel home. It's a message from the RTS founder that everything you need, you're going to have there. Open your, you already have a channel, open your bookstore, your free stuff, your paid stuff. The people just need a link. The people, it's the same with our videos. People don't care where they are watching the video or YouTube or any other site. They want the content. The same thing goes with the book, you know. So if you could open your shop and share those links instead of Amazon links, nobody can ban you. You know, the people need your stuff and they're going to find you through these links. So we really urge you that you do open the shop, create all these links of your book and share it everyone on Facebook.
Okay, that's perfect.
So, yeah, go ahead.
I did create links to most of my books. I think I did it last night. I kind of linked up most of the Amazon books I have remaining, 25 books or so. I put them in RTS, but there's 10 that aren't in print because Amazon banned my entire account. My goal is to upload every single book I've written to date and hereafter, obviously, so that people can get them for free. That's the RTS for me, is that I want everything I've ever written there for free, where you can have You don't have to go to Amazon to buy anything. You can have and not pay me anything. You just download it as a PDF for free. That's my goal. So I'm going to work on getting all my books uploaded to RTS, all 35, and they're just everyone can have them. The second thing,
that's truly amazing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the second thing is my writing strategy is I try to put a kind of synoptic, full comprehensive picture of the entire panoramic thing of what we're going through in every single book. In other words, think of it like facets of a diamond. One book will focus on scientism, but it'll give you the full picture of other aspects of the Luciferian occult or Freemasonry or enclosed cosmology. It's going to be in that same book. The next book will be called, for instance, I have one called Apotheosis in the Cosmos. So the emphasis there is on the Luciferian quest for immortality, apotheosis, using the enclosed cosmological deception or a model as their enemy, and then they've adopted heliocentrism. But in that book, you're going to find like a full picture of the entire thing, which is going to include scientism. And okay, you see what I'm saying? Every book, I try to put the entire. That's why these books are 800 pages long, because I want every book to have the big picture plus an emphasis on which I'm writing at that particular point in time. Okay, so I'm throwing that idea out there so that you know, if you can't find right now Release the Kraken, you might find Scientism Unmasked or Apotheosis and the Cosmos or One Deception to Rule Them All. You'll find some other book I've written, and it's going to still have pretty much the full picture of what we're talking about, except more recently the Black Goo, because it's a more recent thing. You'll get that in probably the last 5 or 6 books. So any of the last 5 or 6 books I wrote, you're going to find a lot on just that, in addition to everything else. Okay, so having said that, to answer your question now, the Black Goo is, as far as I can tell, it is a kind of superconducting substrate that is very kind of polyfluid. It moves, it organizes stuff, it pushes through your body. It's self-organizing, and it's shaped through magnetism and electricity, so they can move it anywhere they want past the blood-brain barrier, and essentially turn you into like a cell phone. Like you're no longer even human. You're just being digitally and magnetically and energetically and harmonically manipulated, especially harmonically. You can change the vibratory structure around the Black Goo, and it will change shape. It's not just magnetic. So that's the thing that we're dealing with now, is that so many people have this inside their body. And then I think, Rob, you were mentioning chemtrails. Remember you were talking about chemtrails?
Yes.
And I think we're
see
seeing
them all the time here in Salt Lake City.
Yeah,
there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of black rain happening in different countries. Black rain. Oh. And it's because chemtrails are one thing where you have barium, strontium, aluminum.
BAL, yes.
BAL, and those things have been large doses of those have been quantified on the ground. Like it's falling from the sky, chemtrails. But another thing that's happening is of black rain. In other words, the GO, the Black Goo, is actually being injected into the clouds as well as barium, strontium, aluminum, right? So it's not just that it's being injected into you, it's being rained down upon you.
That's
amazing. Right. And Gregory,
yes.
Usually when they spray in the skies, it's normally 12 to 16 hours before a rainstorm comes in, before storm front, because they want to make doggone sure that stuff does rain down on you.
So now, see, this is why often it comes to the end of some of these shows. What's the solution, Mr. Garrett? Not on this show, but other shows. And I go, you're not going to escape the beast system. If they don't inject you, they're going to rain down upon you, or that's going to be in the foods. They're finding the Black Goo in Cheetos now. It's in cereal. It's in everything. They're putting it in everything. I mean, and it's in the water supply. It's in the clouds. It's in the jab, the juice.
Hey, thinking about that, I used to go to the grocery store, and when I see ladies with Lucky Charms cereal, for instance, General Mills, I would tell them and say, "Hey, look, read the label there. You got trisodium phosphate as one of your ingredients, and that's the main ingredient to paint thinner."
And that's just what they're telling you.
It's paint thinner. It's going underneath the jail. They put it in your cereal.
And that's just what they're telling you. I mean, the stuff they're not telling you is really, that's the stuff. And I think I think someone was doing a video where they had a magnet on some cornflakes, and it was magnetized. It's in everything. They're putting it in everything. So here's the thing: how do you escape the B system if it's more than just escaping the jab? You see, it's more than that. It's not just like,
exactly. So they take you from everywhere. They take you from every side, as you mentioned, by the geoengineering, the genetic engineering, the food toxicity, the water, the psychological crap they are giving us through the wars and all these together and suppressing everybody. It's like really like it cannot. It's we cannot say it can be worse because it's always we are at the worst part always. So it's always going to get worse.
In military terms, they call it full spectrum dominance. Have you heard that phrase, full spectrum dominance?
Yeah.
Where on every single, it's a multi-pronged military attack strategy where in every single aspect, every land, sea, it's geo intelligent synchronous warfare, what they're doing.
I mean, you can't escape the B system. It's going to rain upon all of us one way or the other. However, your biggest weapon that you fight the B system is your personal Lord and Savior and having that relationship.
That's what I was getting at.
That's where it gets to. That's the answer.
Rob, can you find the quote about the principalities of good, of evil, and we fight not a battle of?
Yes.
Can you find that quote?
Absolutely. Yes.
Because that's where this is leading to. You can't escape. You have to. It's a spiritual battle. I have a book called the Techno Spiritual. My first book was called Techno Spiritual Warfare. Techno spiritual war. We're not in it's a fourth generation warfare. It's a techno spiritual war, and you can't escape it through any conventional means. It's spiritual war at this point.
Okay, here it is, Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places.
That's it.
Okay, so here's the thing: people that are frightened, because let's face it, this is horrific, but this is not for the faint of heart. This is a serious spiritual battle, and it'll rip you to shreds eternally if you get it wrong.
All right, so, let me also, Gregory, Rob, it's also in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4 and 5, discusses the warfare of the spirit. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world.
Yeah,
there we go. The same thing, just
Rob, can you find a quote that talks about, and the battle is the Lord? It's not yours, it's the Lord's. There's a quote on the battle is.
Yep, the battle is the Lord's. Yes.
Because see, the thing is, if you try to take this on yourself, like what can I do, or even being frightened and then cleaving to Christ, that's not really the right approach. It's more like this: it's not your battle. Not only do you not have to, not only are you absolved of the responsibility and the burden of having to fight it and win it, not only do you not have that task or responsibility, it's 100% on the shoulders, like the cross on Christ's back, not yours. You don't have to win it or beat it or overcome it. It's been won. All you have to do is surrender to the fact that the world is wicked. It's Satan's playground. It's not any place that you're going to live eternally, or until maybe after things. But as long as you realize that it's not your battle, this takes the fear part away. You see, you can't win it. It's a battle between Lucifer and God, not you. You're just like, your soul is like the battlefield between these two forces in a way. They want your soul. Lucifer wants your soul, and God wants your soul.
I'm sorry, but is this earth like a breeding ground for souls then?
I don't know about that. And I mean, you can get into the ontological or epistemological aspects of theology, like what is God intending as far as a testing ground or the creation that reflects. And I think it's to glorify the Lord personally, that we're here to.
The earth is a training set. The earth is a training ground.
I don't know. I can't even go that far. I just think we're here to glorify God, period. Like, I'm a songwriter and I write music. I'm also a writer. I publish books. And the whole thing is to glorify the Lord. Like, that's all I'm trying. And if your ego sometimes gets, like, if you get good at something, you tend to want to take credit, and that's always an obstacle you have to overcome. But ultimately, you're glorifying the Lord. And I think that's all it's ever been about. And not necessarily training or testing. It's not even that. It's just you're singing the song of the Lord, period. And there's no effort. is God singing through you. Let me put it that way. God singing through you, using you. Okay, so you surrender to that. It's no longer your battle. There's no worry. There's no fear. There's no terror. You're simply witness or watching it unfold and cleaving. Like, what is the though I the shadow of darkness, I will fear no evil. What is the Psalm 23? You know that Psalm, Rob?
As I walk through the valley of
The shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thy,
the Lord is my staff.
And comfort me.
But could be also, Gregory, it could be also that it has to everything has to manifest, be it negative or positive. That needs to happen. That's how we have that sensation of what was the past and what's happening and what's gonna happen, and this whole creation and everything that has been happening on every level. I think everybody gets a fair chance. No,
well, you're talking about the teleological or the trajectory of the arrow of time, in such a way that necessitates free will. You're kind of talking about that you can't have free will, in which case you choose God versus choosing evil, unless you have this unfolding, this trajectory of unfolding of the arrow of time, where things fall in place in time. This is kind of what you're suggesting, and you have to have that, and you have to have that to exercise free will, because otherwise everything happened at once. There's no free will in that context. It has to be pointalized, demarcated point by point, epoch by epoch, so that you can be choosing freely. Now that's a kind of like larger metacognitive commentary on existence, and there's no way to absolutely know that that's why or how it's happening, but I see where you're going with that it kind of has to be the way it has to be, because that's the way it has to be.
Right.
This is like philosophic, it's epistemological stuff, and it's hard to nail this stuff down when we get to this level of kind of metaphysics.
Well, Gregory,
there's no real answer.
The battle is the Lord's.
Battle is the Lord's, and so rest in that. Yeah, like hide beneath. Go ahead. Sorry.
I have the list of scriptures, by the way. If you want me to read it, I'll read from it if you like.
Please.
Okay, here we go. 2 Chronicles 20:15. Thus saith the Lord unto you, be not afraid nor dismayed by reason of this great multitude, for the battle is not yours, but God's.
That's what I was looking for.
Okay. Yeah. Then here's another one. It goes on and on. 1 Samuel 17:47. For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. Zechariah 4:6. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. 2 Chronicles 32:7. Be strong and courageous, be not afraid nor dismayed, because this is what you're saying, Gregory. Be not afraid nor dismayed, for there be more with us. No, I'm sorry. For the battle is with him, for there's more with us than with the enemy, more or less. It goes on and on. There's a long list of them. But because your point. There it is.
Because otherwise, if you try to face this thing, it's like the David and Goliath story. If you try to face the Luciferian digital beast system,
yes, too big.
You actually have to hide underneath the wing of the Lord. Yeah. Right? You have to hide.
There's only one Savior. There's only one Savior. It's the Leviathan. Really, it's the Leviathan. It's too big. And remember in the bridge over Khazad Dûm. Remember the Balrog? In the Lord of the Rings? Yeah. That was that awful monster, death and hell. It's much like that. There's only one Savior. There's only one Savior to get them in across the bridge, and then Gandalf goes and fights the beast. Well, that represents Jesus Christ. There you go. It's the same story.
So this is, Vikka, you were mentioning the book I wrote called Release the Kraken. Well, what was I talking? What's the Kraken? Well, Release the Kraken. I was talking about in this age, the Balrog, right, that you just talked about, Rob. They're releasing this Kraken, this Luciferian Kraken.
Yes. That's massive beast.
And so that's why I wrote that book, Release the Kraken, not because I want it, but this is what they're doing. They're releasing the Balrog, the Kraken.
Well, guess what, Gregory? As far as guess who's got the master keys, the false prophet, the false Messiah, whoever. Now, as far as releasing the actual beast system, the master keys may very well belong to Elon Musk.
Wow, I've been thinking about that because there's a handful of candidates to represent the Antichrist digital system. There's Barack Obama, there's Donald Trump, there's whoever, right? And then you've got Elon Musk, this guy who's obviously probably a woman. I think he's a woman, and he's an actor.
It looks like
Yeah, but he's more likable than the aforementioned people such as Trump and Barack Obama. So Elon Musk, think about it. He's going more right. He's fighting the left in a pretentious manner.
Yeah.
But it seems like he's going to roll over because he seems to be very wealthy guy.
Another puppet, Mark. Another puppet.
It's hard to say because,
right.
Yeah, because when I first saw him, I saw right through him, and he had no power in my mind. And I don't think I'm that unique. I think others see right through him. I don't know. He doesn't seem to have the charisma. He's kind of like a transitory stepping stone. Like
he's a plant.
Yeah, he's like the poster boy or the representative of the artificial intelligence system that's being instated. But once it's instated, they're going to phase all these guys out. They're going to have a new echelon of very, very satanic and skilled rhetoricians and very highly intellectual Jesuit pawns. I think this is just the first wave. All these guys are going to go away, is what I think.
They'd all do.
Yeah. So, have we heard from Gene? I see his picture here.
No, I'm still here.
Okay. I've been talking and I haven't been connecting the pictures with the. So where does this? Yeah, go ahead.
How about Eddie Allen Carr?
Yeah.
I've been listening a lot. I went to the Amazon website. I saw one of Gregory's book here.
I don't know how much longer they're going to be there. They could be gone tomorrow, for all I know. Everything could be gone.
Yeah, Apotheosis and the Cosmos.
They don't like you, Gregory.
Oh, they don't like me at all. They're just. I got
truth.
Lulu published. Contact me. They said because of Release the Kraken, we're banning your entire account. That same thing with Amazon.
Rob, but they don't like any of us. I don't think they like anybody.
Yeah, they don't.
Today.
I'm just getting kind of high profile because I'm publishing on these big platforms, and they're just like, no way. But anyway,
truth, Gregory.
Yeah, I don't care. I have no filter when it comes to truth. I just put it right out there. You can hate me. I've got a lot of enemies. Like this guy, Mick Toon. He hates my guts. Yeah. I finally wrote a book.
He's behind everyone. Yeah.
He's taking a personal finish against you.
Oh yeah. He did 3 videos. Gregory Garrett's a plagiarist because what I do is I use a lot of great writers, and at the end I'll put a URL. I'll just put a little citation. But I don't litter my books with 100 trillion thousand quotes because who wants to wade all through that? You just want to get the information. See, my idea was that I'll be dead and phased out of the picture, and my information will still be out there for hundreds of thousands of people to, save them. I'm not really curious about the APA format at Harvard. I could care less. I don't.
Exactly.
And so he said he ignored the content of my book. And he did all these videos calling me a plagiarist because I didn't put the perfect citation at the end of some of my articles, right? Because I often will cite things and I'll put the same article in another book, and I don't always just like redundantly put citation after citation. I'm not trying to put out a textbook in Yale. That's not my goal. Anyway, so he took that and he ran with it like plagiarism, and he had all of his minions go to my Amazon site and say plagiarist, 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 plagiarist. So now it's all littered with people saying plagiarist. And I'm like, it's just like, this is what I'm fighting. This idiot.
And all you did was say, I don't care about their format. I'm going to publish, and I will reference, and I'm sure you do reference, but they took that one comment and bastardized it and using it to discredit you.
I have hundreds of thousands of references in my book, hundreds of thousands.
Exactly. Yes,
Greg, they cannot disprove the truth inside the book or the science the flat earthers do. They go for all these kind of things. Oh, this is not correct. That is not correct. Maybe a grammatical mistake or some whatever mistake. But they're not going to look at the evidence that we are providing. That's always a Glober's way.
That's exactly what I found out. Is that he this guy Michael Toon, he has an art of going into details that are extraneous and irrelevant and ignoring the core. Like Nathan Oakley has some really great points he's making on sextants these days, and he ignores everything Nathan Oakley says and just talks about peripheral irrelevant things or ad hominem attacks. So yeah.
Yeah, and the sextant, the
That's how they
sextant
work.
thing, it's not impossible. It's not possible on a globe. If we are doing triangulation on flat lines, on a flat horizon with the stars or with the luminaries or with the constellation, it's all straight lines on a flat map or a flat Earth. So I don't know how he has this 10,000 offer for the sextant works on a flat Earth. The sextant only works on a flat Earth.
Well,
There is
yeah.
no triangulation on a curve, So, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just going to say. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
That's all. I just seconding what Vikka's saying. You know what, Vikka? We should include somebody to talk about the sextant in one of our flatten the curve sequels, 2 or 3.
Well, get Nathan Oakley. He's got a great. Yeah.
There we go.
Well, so I finally wrote a whole
2
book.
or 3. Vikka sounds good, eh?
I finally wrote a whole book exposing. I went to Michael Toon's website and I looked at his videos. I exposed absolutely everything about his fake gravity challenge and how it was manipulated and leveraged. And so that's the one book. In fact, I maybe I have an axe to grind, but that's the one book. It's there for free. It's at Mediafire. It's at RTS. That's the one book I want everybody to download. It's free. I'm not charging a penny for that book. Just get it, awesome. Show people, and get the word out. Because this guy Michael Toon is like vile, satanic approach. It's vile. It's like really hostile and sarcastic, and I mean, it's just really wicked.
Well, I mean, Gregory, think about it. They all are. It's Psy-Man, Dan. And when you have to resort to ad hominem attacks, you already lost the argument. And Socrates has a
there you go.
Quote about that.
From a logical perspective, when somebody goes that route, they've lost and they're done. They have no logic. They have no argument to them. And in reality, that's the argument behind heliocentrism. It's one big ad hominem attack on reality. There it is.
Oh yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Seriously, eh? Yeah. And by the way, Gregory, I realized something a few minutes ago. If somebody ever asked me about Flat Earth books, well, there's a few, but I'm going to tell them if they want a comprehensive reading series, I'm going to direct them to you. Look up all books by Gregory Garrett. That'll cover just about everything.
Yeah, I pretty much, the things that are obvious, I don't cover because everyone's covered them. The stuff that's really, really super obtuse and complex, like scientifically, like vacuum pressure and gradients and rockets and gravity, because gravity gets really complex if you really look at it. To debunk the argument. You have to have a lot of science background to actually show. You can't just say buoyancy and density. No,
they put that bullshit on everything. Gravity. Yeah. It's like a hot sauce. They put it on everything.
It's a sauce, yeah.
Yep. We could discuss about it because even Rob and we tried to discuss earlier also that it's not only about density and buoyancy. It's not only about drowning. It's also about floating. So as my opinion was that once you are into a neutral axis of density and like falling down or rising up is when you achieve this floating experience, what they get in the zero gravity planes, because they are on a neutral axis of the rise or the fall. That's why it's only for momentum. But also that have to do with magnetic fields of the Earth and many things.
Well, that's the thing that Michael Toon is approaching. You guys have heard of gravimetry, using gravimeters? You guys heard about that? Gravimetry? It's like it's an instrument. Well, gravimetry is where they do. They have an instrument that measures vibrations and at different altitudes, and they're correlating that with gravity, right? Another one is ring laser gyroscopes, so to theoretically detect the axial rotation of the Earth. So there's these two things, gravimetry and ring lasers, and Michael Toon is focusing on that and nothing else to prove that gravity exists. That's his gravity challenge.
That's all it is, more ad hominem.
So here's what I wrote.
Easily disproved.
So Rob, you have a pretty terrific science background. So here's what I wrote to him. I think you're going to get a kick out of this. Okay. Here's what I said. I said, Michael, the issue concerning the statistical correlation and he didn't even want to touch this. I said the statistical correlation and probability strength of gravimetry and ring laser gyroscopes show me this in relation to measuring gravity and axial rotation under the null hypothesis, statistics, when applying basic two-way ANOVA and chi-squared statistical modeling, pay special attention to the Pearson product moment correlation coefficient as a measure of linear correlations between two sets of data, where the ratio between the covariance of two variables and the product of their standard deviations are normalized. Do this for both gravimetry data and as well as ring laser gyroscope data. If you can do this, then I'll agree that gravity exists. His reply was, you plagiarized your work. You didn't cite things.
Oh my God.
You know what, Gregory? I think we're given.
All you had to do, and all you did, Gregory, you applied numbers. You put the test. You put his theory to a test, and you destroyed it at first look, like everything else. There you go.
Yeah.
Also, really, if you think about it, we give him too much credit to McGloon, McFly, whatever's in McToon. Yeah. Because the guy sounds like a complete quack.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, you guys might appreciate this. This is a little bit long. I'll try to go fast. But, if you have an instrument, a gravimetry instrument, and you're trying to detect vibrations and you're calling it gravity, you follow me so far? It's like you're at 1,000 feet is different than at 1 foot. And 10,000 feet, theoretically, the gravitational pull, if such a thing existed, right? It'd have a different kind of strength. At 10,000, if you're farther from the surface of the Earth, it would have a weaker.
You know what, Gregory? This sounds no different than the Lorentz Fitzgerald contraction.
Right?
That's
exactly.
Exactly.
So here's the thing. Okay, theoretically, what Michael was saying. He was saying that these instruments are measuring gravity. That's the differential in the findings, the measurements. You know what I did? And he denied it to his entire YouTube channel. He refused to talk about the fact that I gave him 44 peer-reviewed scientific abstracts about problems with gravimeter readings. He would not talk about it with anybody. You know what he said? He goes, those papers don't prove a thing. and here's the
exactly. He just waved his hand, the hand wave, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And Rob, remember, and everyone else, these are not my opinions. These are coming from peer-reviewed scientific abstracts on gravimetry. Okay, now here's what I found out. This is what I got from the data. Here's the problems with gravimetry readings. You guys are going to laugh because there's not just one problem. There's not just two problems. There's 44. Now here's what they are.
Exactly.
When you're measuring gravimetry, here's one of the things that gets in the way of getting an accurate reading. Okay, I'm not going to say one or two. I'll rip through them. Atmospheric pressure differentials at different altitudes, barometric pressure variances. Geological movements, the Earth's magnetic field, solar radiation, lunar position, meteoric activity and wave perturbations, vertical movement of the Earth's crust, tectonic shifts and movements.
There's no proof of anything, right?
Seismic waves, tilt effect, histories in the returnable pressure changes, mechanical histories, biometric, barometric, gravity, age, usage of the meter, external temperature fluctuations, air humidity, air pressure, calibration, air pressure changes, on unstable voltage readings, reading air, backlash of measurement screw, handling and mounting shocks causing sudden reading changes, morphology.
Semi-truck driving by on the road nearby, right?
And animal noises, geological subsoil movements, hydrological influence, natural sonic events, seismic frequencies, wildlife vibrations, storms, thermal fluctuations, geoelectric phenomena, electromagnetic wave patterns,
tidal waves.
Ferrous and non-ferrous magnetic fields that rocks and minerals exhibit, perturbations from radio waves, microwaves, infrared waves, neutrinos, ultraviolet radiation, X-rays, gamma rays. Okay.
UFOs.
So tell me, are there any problems with gravimetry readings?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Okay. Now he ignored all of it and said Greg didn't cite things properly, did 3 videos on it, and claimed that he won. Okay, that's why I wrote a book on Michael Toon, to expose this.
I love it, Gregory. I got to go read that, man. That's fabulous. You just rode through that. This guy's no different than a Facebook troll. That's all he is. He's a Facebook troll throwing out nonsense.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's going tooth and nail with Nathan, and Nathan will just say things. This is the 71st time I've told Michael Toon that you have to have a flat base before you formulate your theoretical ball right? On sextants, you have to have a flat base to get your
There you
elevation.
go.
You get your elevation angle, because remember the geoposition, or the geographical point, or on the Earth, it has to correspond with the target you're looking in your secant or sextant. It has to correspond. You need a right angle to get that correspondence. So you need a flat, and then after the fact, you derive this spherical model. And that's what Nathan Oakley said again and again. And Michael keeps saying, nope, you don't. And that's their battle over there. So anyway.
That's the basis of it. That's the origin of the sextant. It doesn't work without that right angle. Gregory, I'm gonna throw out something. I've mentioned it to everybody in the group, I think. But Gregory, there is a flat plane. And there is a perfectly flat plane. Obviously, it's not the surface of the Earth, but there is a perfectly flat plane, and you'll recognize it when I say it. The perfectly flat plane underneath everything, and it's measurable, it's observable, testable, and repeatable. It is mean sea level.
From LA to New York.
Exactly. It's measurable, observable, and testable.
I got that from you. I got that from you. We talked on the phone months and months, and I got that from you.
Okay.
LA and New York, what do you got? 3,000 miles of curve? I mean, no, it's on sea level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when we use that, and I'm just going to extend that discussion we had. Yes. With LA to New York, there's a flat, sea level is flat between there, right? And we know that the elevation only goes up to about 14,000 feet in the Rocky Mountains, right?
That's just
then
texture. That's just texture of the Earth, the mountains. Yeah.
Texture, right? Topography. However, if we use Pythagorean triangles with the radius of the Earth, we can roughly 4,000 or 3,959.8 or whatever it is, right? We can detect in our mind, we can imagine from LA to New York City, there has to be a curve of the Earth, because if the Earth is a sphere, the surface has to curve upwards, symmetrically upwards to its highest in the middle, and then down towards New York City. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And now, the discussion we were having, and I'm sharing this with everybody else, using simple Pythagorean triangle math on a circle, we can calculate that the elevation of the curved surface of the Earth above sea level, and that's roughly at Kansas City, Missouri, halfway between LA and New York City. The elevation of the Earth must be, and I mean must be, by heliocentric spherical dimensions, 202 miles. I say again, 202 miles above sea level at Kansas City, Missouri, when the actual elevation is only 920 feet, okay? The simple math, again and again, proves that the spherical globe is a mathematical, geometric, geophysical, geospatial, and in all other respects, a scientific absurdity. There we go. Thanks, Gregory, for bringing that up.
My response to you is that I don't think that you cited your sources properly and you're plagiarizing.
I'm plagiarizing.
He plagiarized himself.
There you go, Pythagorean theorem.
By the way, there's someone in the chat, I don't know him, it's Jason Clark. He said McToon is a clown. Well, Jason, my book is called McToon, or it's called McToon Clown Prince of Gravity. So you nailed it. Yeah,
there you go, Clown Prince. Yeah.
That book is free at
Gravity is
Media.
their clown
The book is free at MediaFire at RTS. It's free. Just my books are all going to be free.
Yeah, realtruthseekers.com, realtruthseekers.net. You can find most of the books from Gregory. Make sure you check it out. Also from Eddie and Mark too, and Billy Zig. So it's an awesome place.
Excellent. And I want to bring out Gregory Garrett, your idea. You're publishing your truth, your vast wealth of time and effort for free. And why? To prove the truth of Jesus Christ, the proof of the reality of evil that's upon us, the truth of Christ. Thank you, because we're the same here at Flatten the Curve and Heliopsychosis. This knowledge is free. It's for everybody.
It's everything I write, every single word I've ever written, 35 books, over 4 or 5 million words. The whole point is not enclosed cosmology or even exposing the Luciferian cartels of the Babylonian system.
Yes.
It's not about that. The only reason I'm exposing all this is to lead people to the fact that they have sin and are in need of Christ. That's the whole game.
Jesus Christ.
Otherwise, it's just another excursion into the depths of secret knowledge, which is Luciferian. If you just study flat Earth and Luciferian secrets and mysteries your whole life, then you become a Freemason. Really, you become an occultist.
Okay.
That's a great point, Gregory.
Makes a lot of sense.
Right?
Hey,
Knowledge without Jesus Christ, knowledge without Christ is as the tinkling brass and sounding cymbals.
Yeah. And it's not to be taken lightly. It's not like, oh, I'm just accepting Christ because I'm frightened of dying. Or no. It's you have to understand the realness of the occult, the veracity of their plans. Once you figure out that this is not a game and it's eternal and it's your soul in the balance. Like you're in Las Vegas and you're putting chips. And the chips are your soul. It's like you're betting your soul. You better get it right. You better get it right.
Well, your soul's got to be kind of valuable because God wants your soul, and so does the devil. And ultimately, it's a game to them, but it's not a game to us. And and all roads leads to Jesus Christ. Other than that, when I was writing my book about UFOs, I realized I was writing about different alien races. And I actually realized I was writing about demons, and that's when I turned against it and actually got sued by my publisher before I wrote Flat Truth. So I was actually writing a book about UFOs and alien races.
Wow, that's awesome, Mark.
Yeah,
fabulous experience.
It does make sense. Gregory, it does make sense also, as you say, that it's not a fight, your fight. It's not your war. It's the war between the two, or up there. So it's like it's a war between two kings, and all the pawns, they're gonna die. They have to fight or be in that war. It's not their war. They're just part of it. Yeah.
What do they call that in chess? Pawn sacrifice, sacrificing pawns.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. I think my personal understanding, I know there's 1,000 theological trajectories to the idea of salvation, but in my understanding, you have to be broken to accept Christ. And here's what I mean. If you're just like
contrite spirit, yes,
you have to be. You have to be in touch with the fact that there's no way. Once you look at the Luciferian occult and the cartels coming out of Babylonian system, once you see that it's a hollow promise, transhumanism, apotheosis, eternal life through technology, once you finally see through it, then you realize that there is no way you can save yourself. You're broken to the core. I think that's when you finally really accept Christ. Everything else is lip service, in my understanding.
Well said. Absolutely well said.
And you can come out of it and go, hey, I feel pretty strong today. I feel pretty, on top of it. And like, I don't need Christ. People have days like that, or even weeks or years like that. But ultimately, once that brokenness starts to sink in, the Holy Spirit, you're broken of your mortal fixations.
Right.
There's no going back. You can be as decadent as you want. You're going to be doing it in shame and humiliation. You can no longer party on. Try it. It won't work.
Well said. Well said. And that's why some will push it off. I know people that do push it off because they don't want it. But the fact is, Gregory, everybody dies. Only one has ever come back from the dead. Only one.
And that's why that's why apotheosis, immortal life and transhumanism is their whole mission. That's what's driving Luciferianism to live, eat this apple, and ye shall be as God. That's the core. Well, no pun intended, apple core. But that's what is driving all Luciferianism, to be as God.
Eternal life, right?
Yeah. Instead of
youth, water of life. Yeah. Exactly.
Instead of just accepting the fact that the Lord is the Lord, and that's enough.
Jesus is enough. Jesus is everything. There we go. Absolutely.
So I like this program because the fact that it's not a Bible thumping program, nor is it an exclusively enclosed cosmological laboratory. It's conjoining these things together to make a bigger panoramic understanding of what these all mean together. I like the way this is shaping.
This is an adult scientific spiritual discussion. This is a research forum for all factors of life. Absolutely.
Yeah,
exactly. And we
Go
have
ahead,
some
Vikka.
great minds, and also with scientific background and supporting the spiritual and the creator aspect to it, because many people don't believe that these two can exist together, like especially with Greg and with Rob, like being so scientific, being so having that kind of background and still going the right way. It's so easy to be rational mind and just discard everything else. The mind can
Absolutely.
play tricks.
It's
The
sad that we.
schools have lied to everybody for too long that science cannot deal with scripture because it's not proven. Well, that's why we close the gap. Absolutely, we bring back scripture to science, or science to scripture. That's the key right there.
Well, a lot of the heliocentric people they try to use credentials and well, like, what is your background? What degree do you have? Like, that's one of the idea of, I call it the when you write a paper, I call it the gatekeepers of peer review.
Yeah, they try and peer review
Peer review.
Yeah,
exactly. Right?
and so, like, a lot of times they'll say,
who controls peer review? They
well,
do.
the Masonic,
the
Mason. Did you realize that the epistemol? Have you ever heard of the Royal Society of London?
Yes.
Okay, that's one of the epistemological cartels that came out of England that were shaping the scientific view of the world.
Yes.
Now, the Masonic institutes are connected to that, and all of modern education, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Princeton, it's all connected to the epistemological cartels of the 18th century Royal Society.
Absolutely. Yep.
So if their game is you need to be plugged into the higher learning, and they'll say, well, what do you know about astrophysics? I said, well, I took astrophysics with Frank Drake. How's that? And they go, there's nothing they can say.
Exactly.
And so
in other words, I personally studied at the Jesuit University known as West Point Military Academy. How's that?
Well, yeah. And that's
right?
Now, of course, between you and myself, that has no weight at all. But in their view, see, because they worship these cartels and these titles, it means a lot.
Of course, their numerological view, exactly, right? You got to have degrees and initials behind your name, blah blah blah. Forget about common sense. Forget about observation that anybody can see in their kitchen, literally in their kitchen. The water in the glass, the water in the cup, it doesn't move. The water in the bathtub is flat and motionless. There you go. Simple as that.
It has a container.
Right. Well, I mean,
hey, Rob and Gregory and everybody, speaking of common sense, common sense is so rare these days. It should be classified as a superpower.
Good one, right? Common sense ain't so common, right?
I was just gonna say it ain't so common. Yeah, that's
there you go.
Very rare these days.
Well, what was it ever? I mean, I think common sense is something like when you go to the well and you have a bucket with a hole in it, the water's going to leak out. I think that's what common sense actually was. And now it's things like, well, it's common sense that you use the Big Bang to... No, that's not common sense. How did that become common sense?
We can't observe that. We can't test that. And then in no way is it repeatable. Can't observe it.
I have a friend that's deeply steeped into what's called the Big Bounce theory, which means there's I don't know if you guys understand the renormalization of the quantum electrodynamic equations at the singularity. It's kind of a mouthful.
You said quantum. Anytime there's quantum involved, it's mythology. Theoretical mythology.
It's fake.
So there's the idea of the Big Bounce, and you guys I'm sure you've all heard of sudden heat death, where everything contracts back down to a singularity. Right. And then, of course, the next theory is that because of there's quantum electrodynamic theories, and there's gravitation versus there's the implosion force of the compression force of gravitation, and there's electromagnetic forces pushing things out, which is quantum electrodynamics. So the idea is that you can't, quote unquote, renormalize the gravitational equations at the singularity. Therefore, it bounces back out, okay, and does the same thing again forever. Okay, it's called the Big Bounce theory. It bounces out and then contracts in, and it bounces out and then it contracts in. Now, guess what? Guess what I found out? It's not just like the new kid on the block coming from Stanford. This is actually the theory taught in the Kabbalah and Hermeticism from Egypt.
There you go.
So
it's all about the Kabbalah.
So now follow the breadcrumbs. Okay, so we have quantum mysticism, and we have guys like Max Planck and Niels Bohr. Who are these guys? Oh, they're coming out of Western Europe, steeped in the Kabbalah. All right.
There you go.
So then quantum physics is
like Newton himself.
There it is. Quantum physics is not actually a science. It's repackaged Kabbalah. That's all it is.
There it is. It's mysticism, Kabbalah mysticism. There you go.
And so there's your...
Gregory, everybody else knows this. How many theories are there in the Holy Scripture? Such as the Bible.
Zero.
How many theories are there in the Bible?
None.
Zero.
There you go. Zero. Okay.
Zero.
Zero theories. The holy prophets tell us what is, and therefore everything the Bible. This is scientific now. We need to realize this. Any scientist, when we know what theory is, we know what logic is, and then when we look at the Holy Scripture and realize there is no theory in the Bible.
That's interesting.
But all of university is based on theory. We have to recognize that we must put all of our observational examinations, meaning our investigation and experiments, when we base them on the Bible, when we base our entire study of life on the Bible, guess what? It proves itself every time. There's no theory there. The Bible is scientific.
This kind of leads me to the idea of divine inspiration, because people always battle, oh, it's just a bunch of men writing a book, right? You've heard that, right?
Yeah, who wrote the science book?
A bunch of men write a book.
Who else is going to write a book, right?
But I mean, the idea of divine inspiration, like some people have said, well, you've seemed like you're divinely inspired because the things you're writing. What I'll do is I'll write something.
You are, by the way, you are, Gregory, very much.
Well, there's no way there's no way an idiot like me can pull this off. I'm definitely getting help. I mean, let's be clear about this.
And you're humble.
So the thing is, I'll write something and then I'll do 200 pages of scientific proof to prove what I'm saying. The Bible will say the same thing as I'm saying without the proofs, but it's getting it right the first time, that sounds like divine inspiration. If you're just saying things and nailing it right every time, I'm writing 200 pages of proof because people aren't going to believe me. They just got it right. They didn't have to they're just like, this is the word of God in the beginning.
There you go. They got it right. And the Bible and the Scripture is more concise, brief, and informative than anything written at the universities. The Bible is the postgraduate.
Yeah, because the science is based on speculation after speculation. And the speculations, they have no computation of the real divine truth that flows from above. There is no computation.
That's good. Good way of putting it. Yeah. Let me throw this out to you guys. I've discovered especially there's a guy named Fouquet Word. He's one of the flat earthers from Fouquet. I guess it's near Taiwan. Thailand. Anyway, he says some really good things about just the abstractness of mathematics and models themselves. Because just because you can create a model doesn't mean it's has any relevance to the actual physical world, right? Like the heliocentric model, it does have internal coherence to a certain extent. It doesn't make it true. Let me give you an example. You've heard of games like Halo and Fortnite, these video games?
Right.
Okay. There's an internal logic to the mathematics to create those worlds, but are those worlds real, or do they just exist in a simulation form? They're not. It's not a real. Okay. So think about mathematics. It can't really deal with contradictions, right? Because you put the enclosed cosmological model up against. I hear an echo. Is that me or is that? No. You put the enclosed cosmological model next to the heliocentric model. You're going to see internal inconsistencies and internal contradictions. You follow what I'm saying? Okay, so mathematics. In other words, mathematics. It can't really deal with contradictions per se. Like, on the contrary, it seeks to reconcile all contradictions and establish a reasonable coherence between all the variables. You follow what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
So it leads one into a long tunnel of conformity, causality, consistency, determinism, continuity, and only the things that is required to the allegiance to the axioms and premises and postulates of the model that you're given. You follow what I'm saying with saying that? So
leading one into a series of equations rather than reality.
Right, but however, idealized and theoretical mathematics as is found in like special relativity, the Copernican model, quantum mechanics, and the analytic functions inherent with yeah, exactly. But the analytic functions that are inherent with these particular domains in particular are suited for idealistic and theoretical purposes or propositions, right? They exist apart from practical applications, and they're in no way should they be confused with the testable and repeatable and observable reality. They're simply they're idealized and theoretical quantifications that are not, they're only inherent within they only exist consistently within the domains that they express. They do not apply to the real practical applications of the real world.
Absolutely. And Gregory, I'm gonna give a barnyard example of that. Any of us should not follow any idea, any concept, unless we can operate it on the farmyard principle, as if we're standing in a pasture with our work boots on. We got a shovel or a fencing tool in our hand. We're looking at a herd of cattle. We got a fence around it. We got tractors to bale the hay. If we can't understand something on that simple level, then somebody's lying to us.
Yeah, that's a good way.
There you go.
Just down home. If I have to talk about, if I have to talk about a quantum fluctuations as the creation of the universe, and then eject any idea of a causal intelligence behind those quantum fluctuations. Yeah, there's I think Rupert Sheldrake, I think he said this. He said, or somebody said this. He said basically, science says this: just give us one miracle, and we'll fill in all the rest of the blanks. Because what they want a universe out of nothing from like quantum fluctuations or just a pinprick of infinite dense matter, which is just insane. That's insane to have all of the mass in, I mean, forget just the enclosed model.
Everything came from nothing.
A pinprick, and it started for no cause. You know, it's like there's basic theological apologetics causes. There's Column's argument. There's the intelligent design. There's prima causa. You know, the first cause.
Yes.
And there's
the creator. In other words,
and they always
Richard Dawkins, who at the end of the documentary Expelled, admits at the finite molecular structure, we're going to find evidence of the creator. He says it himself, right there.
You know what he said? It's kind of like moving the goalpost. What he said is, this is in the same documentary that you're talking about. He said, well, he has this like stuffy British accent. Well, no, maybe it looks like it more than appears to be intelligently designed, but it can't be anything less than probably an alien designer. And the alien, and it would have to, like, through all the evolutionary principles that we know, it'd have to seed the world. This snotty British accent, just horrible.
That's what he says. You will find evidence of a creator, but it's not God, he says. But it's not God. There's a creator, but it's not God, right? There we go.
It appears. He uses the word appear. It appears to be intelligent design. It's not actually intelligent design, but it appears to be so. It has to be an alien.
But you guys have heard of descent from Darwinism.
God, that's what it is.
Dika, what'd you say? I'm sorry.
Descent from Darwinism. Have you heard about that? There are more than 1,000 academics and scientists who are against the theory of evolution, and it's called descent from Darwinism.
Oh yeah, I did a collection of books in my very because I was really anti-evolutionary theory after looking into it, and one of the things I looked into was how many books are against. There's like 185 books I found that disproved evolutionary. Like there's so many scientists that you don't hear about because they're not doing the Masonic. They're not towing the party line. You know, they're writing against.
That's right.
But that's
peer
really
reviewed, right? They don't make the peer reviewed.
Oh, the gatekeepers of peer review. The gatekeepers of peer review. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, I want to throw this out while everybody's listening. We're on the topic, evolution and genetics. I've read a piece that talks about genetics. There is, I say this for everybody, there is no such thing as genetics. No clone has ever survived. It doesn't work. It doesn't. Genetics, I'll tell you this, there is a type of genetics, but it's called animal husbandry. We could breed two dogs and get a different breed out of it over successive generations, and the fruit fly experiments. But genetics goes no farther than animal breeding. There is no further genetics than that, period. That's what the research tells us. And that supports what you're saying here and your research into evolution there, Gregory. And I'll say this for everybody. Again, there is no further genetics than animal breeding. It stops there. It doesn't get any more complicated than that, period.
Yeah, species don't jump each other. Alligators don't turn into giraffes.
Here's the thing that's hard for people to understand. There's two main things at war here. One is jumping species to species, like a species evolving to another species. The other thing but the other thing, which is a relatively
mutate.
Yeah, but there is a science. There is a scientific antecedent or precept to the idea of genotypical and phenotypical variation. Okay, so you don't see a monkey evolving into a Homo sapien, but you do see genotypical and phenotypical variations in the species itself.
Within species, of course.
So what happens with these evolutionary zealots? They're like, oh, but don't you see different types of parakeets? Yeah, that's called variation of species. That's not evolution.
Of course, yeah.
There's a big difference.
That's
micro adaptations don't ever equal evolution either.
Well, there's not one case of man, at least, ever be able to artificially. They tried with I forgot, was a type of worm, or I forgot what it was, but not for lack of trying. The thousands of cases and iterations of trying to evolve. It was something that had a very short life. It was like an 11-day lifespan, some kind of like insect, because they could do more research if it only has 11 days. Because
that's the fruit fly. That's the fruit
fly.
Oh
yeah. That's it. The fruit fly. That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
So there you go.
And it can never happen. Just like 1864, they experimented with meat. They boiled the meat, boiled it, and then put it in a petri dish to watch what happened. Guess what? Nothing happened. If there's no life, there's no more life. There's no successive life.
Well,
life creates life.
Here's another one. Here's another one. The idea of common. I don't know if you guys will hear this. The grasshopper has 90. I mean, I'm not saying it's true, but this is what they'll tell you. It is 93% common DNA with Homo sapien, right? So what they're well, I mean, I don't believe it, but this is what they're saying. Okay, or monkeys, or it could. Okay, so think of it this way. If a monkey has a similar genetic code, not perfectly similar, but slightly as to Homo sapien, what they're saying is, because it has DNA that's similar, it must have come from monkey. Okay, now here's the logic of that. Common characteristics and common elements don't mean evolution. Here's why. Have you noticed that chairs have carbon, right? Am I right in saying that? Chairs have carbon? Okay.
Common wood has carbon, right?
And you have carbon, right?
Everything has carbon.
Okay, did you evolve from chairs?
Exactly. It's the same argument.
You share the same components, therefore you must have come from a chair. Okay, common
93% same components, you must be a chair.
So look at it this way. Common let me put it this way. So I'll put it this way. Common design attributes and design elements mean common designer. Get it? See, if you have common elements between different things, common attributes, it doesn't mean they evolved from each other. It means the designer used common elements. So their argument
is that like the buildings all over the world that look the same?
Well, yeah, they all gave birth to each other. Yeah, because buildings give birth to each other, you know.
Right.
And trees are made of wood, so we know for a fact that your dresser drawer made of wood, that it evolved from a tree, because trees and so there is no logic in that argument. It's a fallacious philosophic argument.
Absolutely.
What about entropy in evolution? In Big Bang, does entropy work in Big Bang?
Well, there is I call it. Think about this. There's entropy and there's an anti-entropic force. Okay. Think about evolution is anti-entropic. Instead of things following the natural law of entropy are defied when you look at evolution. When things evolve, it's anti-entropic. So where is your evolutionary theory, which is based on being driven by mutations? If all mutations are the lack of genetic information, which means you can't evolve with mutation. So the entire theory is a contradictory mess.
Right. It really is. And
observable science, observable nature. It's the opposite of entropy. And that's what Gene is talking about. Evolution is the exact opposite of entropy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I wrote a paper called the anthropic force theory, like about 20 years ago.
Oh, really?
I have a friend that's a physicist, and he's also the Catholic friend, and he goes, hey, you know,
Oh,
because he goes, you know, there's an and of course I had to look up the word. I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, there's an anti-entropic force that's pushing things
They
forward.
just invent shit. That's what it is. They invent things. That's all
Yeah.
it is.
Well, then
They don't wanna accept
They get
that everything up to the micro level is designed so that complex system works perfectly. That's they don't want to accept. They want they
Vika,
with no extra parts.
here's the thing to understand. Once you finally understand that code is a substrate beneath just about everything. Okay, computer code, right? DNA code. Everything has a kind of a molecular, or you can. I don't want to get into it. I don't want to say atomic, but there's a type of code or an intelligent matrix or substrate. And I'm not talking New Age. I'm not talking Eastern. I'm not getting into that. I'm just talking basic scientific code. Is it the substrate beneath everything we're looking at now? It's a fact of science. You cannot get code from any random processes, period. Ever, ever, ever. You need some kind of intelligent source to develop code, okay? Whether it's a programmer or whether it's a God, a designer, a creator, to make the creation called Homo sapien. Now, if you throw this out to people that are about the random processes and random selection, random, everything's random, okay, and you say, wait a minute, it's not so random. It's not so random. It's very much intelligently coded. Therefore, and according to science, you have to have a coder or a designer for code. Now you throw that at them. Tell me how you got code, DNA, molecular, quantum molecular. How did you get all this code from random mechanisms? From random mechanisms.
Right.
Billions and billions and billions of years.
Oh, so that's like the special sauce of gravity. You just keep adding more years, right?
Yeah.
Adding more. And if you have enough years, then if you have a bunch of metal in a junkyard, and if you have 4 billion years, you'll arrive at a 747 with a sufficient hurricane,
fully loaded.
It doesn't
with
work
gas and
out
everything.
that way. So all you have to do, engines ready, and like odometers and
avionics.
All you have to do is run a statistical, a chi-squared statistical modeling algorithm on that theory. It would be not only trillions and 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 trillions of years to arrive at just a Q-tip. Just that, right? Let alone an airplane. So there's no amount of time so statistically their model fails, and philosophically the model fails, and scientifically the model fails.
But I say it a lot though. They really have an unfair advantage because everybody's forced to send their kids through the system one way or another.
Well, the indoctrination
system. All their system.
Yeah, and that's where they got everybody. The Masons took over so many hundreds of years. And I have a book called The Shadow Empire. Not many people know about that book. It's one of my favorites. And it's about, look up I think it's still in print, or I uploaded it to RTS, but it's about the Vatican, the 15th century Vatican, enclosed cosmology, Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo, Sir Isaac Newton. It's about the Vatican Jesuits. It's a little known book that I have called The Shadow Empire, and I expose the entire
empire.
The heliocentric model, and it's all there. It's a short book. It's not a big 800-page book, but I encourage people to get that one. Try to get it free, obviously, if you can.
Shadow Empire. Good.
These guys pulling on
first.
These guys pulling all your books off like that reminds me of the information age that is so fascinating to everybody. Yet it really reminds me more of the libraries of Alexandria going on right in front of us right now.
That's kind of what I was thinking when I started writing. Here's I know this is going to sound strange, but this is exactly my thought process. I'm going to write 35 books plus. I'll probably, when I die, I'll probably have 40 or 50, but I'm going to have so many books well, if I can pull that off, I'll do it. I've got 35 in 5 years, but if I can get so many books in every country, hundreds of thousands, that when this all comes crashing down, there'll only be 2 sources in people's basements. They'll be hiding with the Bible and my books, and they'll be able to piece it all together, what happened chronologically, and then they'll have a salvation in the other hand called the Bible. That's pretty much what I'm doing.
That's
I'm
really
getting
awesome.
Gregory, Gregory,
yeah.
one question: do you have your books in other languages or no?
No, I haven't. People have done audiobooks of my books. Nikolai is a friend of mine who's the Illuminati Watcher, and he did a lot of audiobooks of my books. They're out there, but I've never had them translated. There's only so much I can do. I'm writing, publishing, arranging, editing, marketing. I'm doing everything. I'm just one guy, so I just I need people to help with that. If they want to do it, go for it.
Okay, we're gonna see if we could find some, at least in a couple of language more, at least some of the more important ones. I think most of your work is amazing. You know, all needs to be, I think, reached in all part of the world, because people need to wake up everywhere in every aspect. It's not
Well,
only about people who speak English. Yeah.
if we do that, if we can get as many, okay, here's the thing. If we can get as many people involved as possible to, get my books out there in every single language, but I want to do this where it's free, though. I don't want to do this where it's a money-making Amazon. If we can get everything I've ever done translated in as many languages as possible and free on Mediafire and free on RTS, it's got to be free, though, if we're going to do this. Like, if people want to help and get involved, let's get things translated. Let's get things codified. Let's get things attached to websites. It's everything out there, but it's got to be free at this point.
Amen. Truth is free, brother.
Free.
Truth is
Exactly, because
every book I've ever written, it's got to be free at this point. Sure, there's some Amazon stuff that's still there, but it's got to be free. I don't want this to think, look, Greg's gonna get more money from more books and more languages. No, let's stop all that. It's all free, and we just
for definitely, brother. They're gonna be people who will want to support you in some way, where you could have your physical hard copies. And for sure, the people know that at least on online, you are giving your wisdom for free. You can't do more than that, and so that's great. So
because free is the way to go at this point with this kind of knowledge and the Bible and everything. Because my books, really, I give away the whole game. It's all there. I chronicle day by day, blow by blow, the history of the contemporary media. I mean, everything's there. So it's got to get out there, but it's got to be free.
Amen.
I can't stress that enough at this point. It's got to be free.
Amen.
Exactly, when it resonates with people, things automatically happens. Mark might know what I mean, even Eddie and Rob, so it's just
Absolutely.
These two resonates with the right people and the right thing happens.
That's right. And I'm going to edify what we spoke about all night long. One of my favorite authors from Mark Twain, the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why.
Yeah. That's it.
There it is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was writing a prospectus of 30 years ago. I had no idea what was going on. I was going to make all the knowledge in the world in this encyclopedia. It was just a crazy, weird thing. Mm-hmm. I was going to make all the knowledge, every single topic, connected. I had no idea what I was doing. I just had this wild 30 years later and 20 years of being a musician and teacher and all this stuff. All of a sudden, I'm producing this book. I still didn't know what was going on. And now we're talking on the radio 35 books later, and I've pretty much connected everything together in an encyclopedic. So this shows you that it's not you that's doing this, whoever you are. If you're trying to get people to Christ, it's just not you. You may have skills and aptitude. You may have talents and aptitudes and scientific or whatever, theological. It's simply not you. And you'll find out as you do it, because you're writing or creating way, way, way above your pay grade. And that's how you know it's not you.
Amen, brother. Yes, absolutely true.
It is true. When people tell you know what you're talking about and you have no idea what you're talking about.
And it's not like, once you're doing it, you're transformed and you're some infinite genius. That's not the case at all. I'll go back to read my own books, go, wow. I just
forgot that.
Wow. I read my own books all the time. Just try to stay up to gear here.
That's right.
Yeah, admire the creation, because it's as you say, things just come in a way, and you are in a way do things that sometimes you don't realize until it happens, you know. So
That's probably my only talent is to, well, in addition to certain analytic skills, but what I do is I have no filter when it comes to getting the truth. I'm just ruthless. I have a savage approach to getting the truth. Nothing gets in the way. I'll just go and go. I'll go for days or months. Just that's how you get 35 books. You just go and go and go. And you collapse on your bed because you can no longer breathe or see, and then you just start again. Because it's not you. You're after the truth. It's like the truth. It's like
drives you.
It's like the divine attractor, like the great attractor. It's attracting you. You're not doing anything. It's pulling you.
you are no painting. The painting is like you are, like, you know, in a way how you say, you know, like it
Well,
just manifests.
You're like you're the channel, or the medium, or the channel, or the conduit. It's just coming through you. And I've had days where I'm just like tired and there's not much coming through. I'm not blocked. I'm just tired. And I realize, wow, it's not even my knowledge. I'm just putting it down and then publishing it.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah. It's certainly not my knowledge. I mean, like
That's
right now,
it's the Holy Spirit's knowledge working through you.
That's it.
And it can be taken away. Be taken away in a second. It can all in a second. You realize, wow, it was never mine. I mean, I'm glad it's in book form because it's out there. It's in hard copy. So thank God.
You are speaking prophecy, Gregory, and everybody else. When we speak truth and it agrees with the truth of Jesus Christ, well, that's a version of prophecy to someone who's never heard it before. We're laying out the truth so everybody can see in plain and simple statements. There you go.
That's a good way of putting it. A lot of people were contacting me from other countries. I get letters from China, India, Africa, England, France, Germany, all over the world. And a lot of times people say, you know what? You're writing things that I knew. I just didn't know how to translate it or say it.
That's right. There you go.
So all I'm doing, I'm just translating for a modern age what the Bible already said. That's all I'm doing.
Thank you. You're translating into modern speak. And you know what? As you know, Gregory, Mark, and anybody else and Eddie, we know that it's best to write at the lowest common denominator so everybody can understand from a simple dictionary. There you go. When we write at that level, everybody can understand and everybody loves it. Voila.
And that's why Michael Toon had a field day, because I put literally 10,000 Wikipedia definitions of words in all my books. There's thousands of, and I don't always say Wikipedia. Like sometimes I'm just going super fast. I'm trying to get the concept done. I'll throw in a definition because I want the reader to understand what I'm talking about. Right.
Yes.
And because I don't want to, some of the stuff I say is quite complex. So along the way, it's littered with all these definitions of the terms I'm using. And I don't always, I'll put wiki or just sometimes just throw it in and just keep going. So he scanned my books and tried to find, he didn't say Wikipedia here. And he's just like, dude, that's not the point. The point is to give the definition of the word so you can understand the greater meaning of what I'm getting at. So, yeah.
There you go.
Hey, Vikka, would you like to say two things about it, what Gregory has been talking about? Hey, Vikka?
Go ahead.
Okay. So, Gregory, I wrote down two things here. Was paying attention what you're talking about. So the first thing I want to say is the dishonesty of those people. MC Toon, Where is Wally, Wolfie 6020, all those people, they use a lot of dishonesty. So this Brazilian journalist, he just passed away. He was a globe believer. He had a big globe on his desk, but he started noticing the argument between globe believers and flat earthers. And he pointed out the dishonesty of the globe believers, and he was attacked, And the other thing, point number two, is atheism. Those people, they are not afraid of lying. They lie their way out because they are atheists. They are stardust. They believe they are stardust. So there will be no judgment for them. So they can just lie their way, as they go.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's why you come across all that. And it's have you guys ever heard of cosmism from Russia?
No, I haven't.
Nikolai Fedorov, who's a Russian cosmist, and the idea was they're taking this religion of the cosmos and graduating out into evolutionary theory into the cosmos and seeding other planets, and that's what's really driving this. This is the religion Rob was talking about. That's beneath the heliocentric theory is kind of like cosmistic religion. That the cosmos is really where it's at. The Earth is a speck on a speck on a speck on a speck, and meaningless whatever to them. So that's kind of what you're saying. The atheists, they have no underpinnings or anchorings into anything with meaning, so they can lie, cheat, steal, murder. Doesn't, and they'll say that they're moral, but they're just borrowing morality from Christianity on loan. Exactly. That's what they're doing.
Yeah. So those were the 2 points I wanted to make.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why Michael Toon is, he professes, I think he's trying to profess to be Christian in some way. I'm not getting it. It's like, if you're savagely attacking people all the time and trying to mock them, and like, where's the Christian part in that?
I don't know. I don't know where those people get their heliocentric model from. They claim to be from the Bible, but the Bible is 100% a flat earth book.
It's pride. It's hubris. They're identifying with the Western astrophysical and astronomical model, the Copernican model, and they find a lot of people in their camp. Think of it this way: like everyone on this show has a certain amount of bravery, right? If you're alone fighting the heliocentric model, you're fighting 7 billion people. Okay, and if you go against that grain, which is what we're doing here, it takes a certain amount of bravery to take 7 billion people. You lose your family, you lose your friends, you lose your wife, you lose your husband, because you're fighting for this kind of truth. Who would, in their right mind, defend the enclosed cosmological model if it was just a light, frothy, meaningless nothing? No, you're doing it because you've discovered some kind of truth that has more value than the world's, I guess you could call the consensus.
The world presented to us, right?
But it's how the world presents it, but it's more like the warm, cozy, social company of the masses. See, remember, Michael Toon and all these people, their club contains 7 billion. They think, I'm in great company here. If you're an enclosed cosmologist, you're like ripping on the top of a mountain with the wind hitting you, trying to survive, is what it comes down to. Who would want to do that? That's why these guys are so smug and arrogant, because they think, we cannot fail. We have 7 billion people behind us.
And the best part is, if you question these people, if you ask them real questions, they don't have answers. Just even just question like they say, gravity bends space and time. Just define how the space and time bends. Just define in few words.
Right. Yeah, I know. Well, remember I read that list of 44 problems with gravimetry readings to you guys, right? And it's like 44 problems. How could this be an accurate instrument of gravitational detection if you've got things like electromagnetic perturbations, atmospheric problems, wildlife, storming, wind? And I read you 40. Some of them are very technical. And remember, I got those from peer-reviewed abstracts, and he ignored every single. You know what he focused on? He said, neutrinos? How could and you know what? I found an abstract where they said neutrinos actually cause problems with gravity, and he ignored that. Okay, so it's like, I call it the materialistic naturalism bias. Have you guys ever heard that phrase, materialism naturalism bias? They have a bias towards materialistic naturalism, no matter what you present them with. If it's theological or metaphysical or involves
always turn it back to something
materialistic,
numerological, materialistic, is something you can see in his hand. That, you know what that is? That's ideology.
Cognitive dissonance.
Idolatry. What they can see. They worship what they can see.
And in philosophy,
that's exactly what it is.
In philosophy, it's called a materialism naturalism bias. It's everything is biased in favor. In other words, it's like philosophy. There's an a priori set of presuppositions, right? So it's like certain things are a priori. Like logic is to be trusted is a priori. You can't test that because you need logic to test it, right? So you assume it a priori, before the fact, a priori. Okay. And they assume a lot of things that are actually not testable. They're unfalsifiable according to empirical science, and they just run with it. And then they build a citadel of more assumptions and presumptions based on a faulty set of hypotheses and presumptions to begin with. So it's a huge, false, fraudulent see-through, hollow citadel of
Well,
nonsense.
let's call it mystical science or magical science.
Yeah, mystical, magical. And yet the thing to remember that the presuppositions and the hypotheses that all these things that their theoretical models are based upon are they're unfalsifiable to begin with. You can either prove them true nor non-true. So you're starting with a hypothetical mystical idea and then building a framework upon that. And by the time you get to the third level or fourth level of the framework, it's so mystical and so inscrutable and injected with mathematical equations that of course nobody can question it because it's nonsense.
Yeah.
And no relation
Because
to
they know
reality.
very well. They know very well. No one is gonna question because it's just started on the base of light. It's always going to be, and even in the
Baffle?
future, they're gonna show the clown the
Yeah.
clown show so transparent, but the people are not gonna see. They're gonna close their eyes because they know
Baffle.
very well. The one who are pushing that, they know very well. That's the basis of everything.
That's why in my book, McToon, Clown Prince of Gravity, which I hope everybody gets for free, it's at Mediafire and RTS. It's free. I stress that. Because I go all the way through gravitational equations and science and Newtonian. I go through the entire thing, plus what I just read you. It's 800 pages long of science showing that gravity is a myth. I'm not just stating it. I'm showing it using Gaussian equations, Lorentz formations, transformations, which what Rob mentioned. I'm talking about dielectric principles, electromagnetics, buoyancy factors, and I'm using physics from Western, science. And so once you see that guys like Michael Toon are ignoring absolutely everything and just asserting something based on a fraudulent gravimeter reading, then they become exposed to those who, I guess, have eyes to see and ears to hear.
Exactly.
What haven't we covered, guys?
Oh, we covered a lot. Rob, yeah. So yeah, it's almost almost gonna be 3 hours. So yep, soon we're gonna be wrapping. But yeah, we could have gone for another few hours. So
Well,
we
the thing
could
I
have
like,
covered much of.
the thing I like is
Yeah,
that
right.
we've connected a lot of it together, which is we haven't just like riffed off of random. We've connected a lot of this stuff together, which is vital because it's a lot to digest for people.
Absolutely, yes, it is. Absolutely,
It's a
Yes,
lot.
it is.
And some of it's very
Oh
intricate.
yeah.
Some of the physics is very intricate, and it all has to be kind of explained in detail very slowly over time.
Oh yeah. We could go with special topics and could really go dig in all of stuff with all the people we have here. So it was really, really a great conversation, and it's good to have all different opinions in a way, and so.
it's been a great pleasure of mine to come with you guys. Always, 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 Vikka and Gregory. It's about really a pleasure talking with you, and of course, always with Eddie and Rob, my buddy Rob and Gene. You guys are amazing talk tonight. I really enjoyed it.
Well, thanks, Mark.
Thank you,
Yeah,
thank you, Mark, for being here.
Thanks, Mark.
And especially thanks to Gregory Garrett for coming along and talking with us.
Thanks for having me on, and I hope we do this again real soon.
Absolutely great fit.
Definitely, yeah. We're gonna have a last round of last thoughts about whatever you want to add. Who wants to go first?
I'll go ahead,
Yeah.
Vikka.
Go ahead, Rob. Go ahead.
Okay, Eddie.
Okay. So I'm gonna
go ahead.
upload this. Sorry, Rob. So I'm gonna upload this video also to my channel, and I would like Gregory, if you can, after comment there. I will pin to the top so people can find your books and how to get in touch with you. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
And to the rest of the guys, it was a pleasure being here today. I'll see you the next time.
Good to see you, Eddie.
Amen. Much love, brother.
Love to everybody. God
Thanks.
bless everybody. God bless.
God bless you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
passing
guys.
by, Eddie. Thanks for passing by. Yeah, it was also a pleasure. Yeah, we know you should have already started your day, but yeah, thanks for passing by, brother.
Okay. All right. See you next time, Vikka.
Thanks, bro. And Mark already had said his thoughts. Jeannie, you?
Oh, Vika, what a great night. I don't think I was prepared for this as much as I thought I was. We could do this again, anytime. I hope you guys in the audience had a lot of fun. You can collect your mind after hearing all of that information. And my mind was blown all over the place tonight. And all those books are for free on RTS, guys. I'd really like to invite you all to check that out again. And come back again, everybody. Gregory, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Just amazing what you're talking about.
My pleasure. Just a few closing thoughts for myself. I'll keep it very brief, but one of the things that I want to encourage people to do, I write quite a bit, obviously, and a lot of people do, and they talk about these issues, is that it's very intimidating to take it all on in like even in a year. Allow yourself kind of time to assimilate these things, the technical aspects, and realize that the main thing is the spiritual underpinnings, everything we're saying. It's not to have like infinite knowledge of the enclosed cosmology or how vacuum pressure works or the Luciferian occult and what the Illuminati are doing. That's just a means to an end. And the end is to realize that your salvation is not through that knowledge. It's through the idea of we have sin and we're in need of salvation through Christ. And I don't take that lightly. It's a matter of coming to that by understanding there is an occult that's very real and wants your soul. And if you don't think you have a soul, then that's the next thing to look into. So in short, I hope we can develop a platform where we can judiciously and slowly disseminate this knowledge so people can grasp it and not get overwhelmed. I know there's like so much coming at people. So that's my main concern, is that, just take it in your time or God's time. You don't have to know everything. In other words, we're giving a lot. You don't have to know it all. That's not the goal. The goal is to learn what you can learn as you go. The goal is to know that there's salvation through Christ. So that's my real, and all my books, I want them to be free. That's another thing.
Excellent, Greg. It was such a big pleasure to have you here, and you're always welcome. You really need much more exposure on every level, everywhere, and you are welcome and whenever you want. So it was so much input from you, and we just even touched the surface. So I know there's a loads of stuff that you would have to add and say on every topic we could discuss here. So I really urge people, everyone, to the listeners, do check out Greg's book, on RTS or anywhere you could find. And you're gonna have the link already in the description of his channel if you want to follow his channel. And what I could say, Greg, it's thank you for passing by, and we will look forward for more shows with you.
My pleasure. Look forward to the next show.
Excellent. I think Rob has already left, so yeah. So just gonna give a shout out to Fisherman in a Box, and there was Zeus Scott, Intellectual Ketchup, Gary Towner. All right, guys. So that was an episode of Heliopsychosis podcast. Do check it out on next week with more awesome content. This is Vikka Draziv signing out from Heliopsychosis podcast live. Bye, guys.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Bye.
Good day. Bye.
God bless all.
Bye.
Amen.
Bye.